Looks like you've had a burn.
It's a lovely driving glove.
A red leather driving glove, if you were listening.
Well, red and black.
Oh, yeah, it's
I mean,
double-sided, yeah.
Ultra stylish. They arrived yesterday.
With cut-out detail.
Well, it's a driving glove and they've got little holes in the fingers and things. And...
They're lovely and soft, I have to say that.
Yeah.
Oh, Olivia Otley, yes, they are.
Thank you, Olivia.
They are.
Gave them a little stroke.
You see, you're a woman of style and taste.
Woman of taste.
Timeless fashion.
They are buttery soft.
How do they feel when you're turning the steering wheel, Neil?
Lovely.
And do you do it with your little pinky out there?
No. They're lovely. Yeah. But I don't see what's... I walked in the newsroom this morning with this because I've got to walk half a mile in the morning to get... when I park the car. I walked in and kept my hands toasty warm.
Yeah.
And I just got laughed at.
And everybody had an opinion when you walked through the door.
None of them good.
They were described as O.J. Simpson gloves.
I mean, that's
not good.
Well, any glove is an
They
O.J.
do fit, though, to be fair.
They do fit.
They fit remarkably well. I said they looked like Cruella de Vil gloves. And you could get matching patent leather boots to match if you wanted to. What else was...
Why have they got holes? I always wondered with driving gloves. What's the point in the holes in the fingers?
Ventilation.
Is it meant so you can move your fingers on the steering wheel?
I don't know. A lot of driving gloves are like sort of knitted on the top, aren't they?
They are, yes. That beige knit with the leather on
I like the full leather.
GBNews, the People's Channel.
Very, very good afternoon to you all. It's 3 p.m. and welcome once again to the Moss and Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live across the UK with all the very latest news, debate and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. Another corking show awaits you. Here's what's on today's menu. Keir Starmer has pledged a tough new deal with China to block the export of Chinese-made dinghies and motors. He thinks that will help to stop the boats. But today, GB News can exclusively reveal that people smugglers are already one step ahead. Plus, with over 28,000 outboard motors for sale on eBay today alone, I'll spell out exactly why Labour's Chinese dinghies deal is Chinese crackers. And a leak from a top Labour NEC member appears to prove that Keir Starmer did cancel elections in areas where they thought they'd lose to Reform and others. On today's show, I'll be joined in the studio by Reform's Zia Ysef, who says we're taking this all the way. We'll see Labour in court.
To bring about a new kind of politics. It's not going to be the old stuff. I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in what's happened. I'm interested in solutions and going forward and working for the betterment of our community.
A convicted Muslim terrorist is standing to get elected as a pro-Gaza councillor in Birmingham, claiming he can help to unite the city. Shahid Butt was jailed for 5 years in 1999 for conspiring to bomb the British consulate and an Anglican church in Yemen. Should terrorists really be allowed to stand as politicians? And in opposition, Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves and Angela Rayner, all of them campaigned to get justice for 3.6 million WASPI women. But today, the Labour government rejected a promised £10 billion compensation scheme, and I'll be joined by the furious chair of Women Against State Pension Inequality. Now, do you remember this classic sailor ditty? Drunken sailor. Well, today, Royal Navy killjoys have insisted that sailors stay dry by banning them from boozing for 2 days a week. On today's show, I'll be joined by a sailor who moans, "This is a rum deal." Do you know that it was written into sailors' contracts from the 1700s onwards that they got a dose of rum? It was rationed in. It was in their pay deal. Sailors were state-sponsored drunks. Probably why so many people signed up. It was fizzled out in 1970. It was called Black Top Day, no more booze. Now it's getting worse. They're stopping sailors drinking 2 days a week. Surely that's their right as born British soldiers, Navy men, to drink. What about terrorists? We've got a terrorist councillor standing in Birmingham. And on the day, Sir Keir Starmer claims to have once again helped to smash the boats, smash the gangs, stop the dinghies. We'll prove, once and for all, his Chinese deal is Chinese crackers. Another Mark White exclusive. Get in touch, gbnews.com/your say is the way to do so. You can use the QR code on your screen right now. But here's your headlines with Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you, and good afternoon to you. 3 minutes past 3. The top story this hour: Sir Keir Starmer has secured a visa-free travel deal with China during his visit to Beijing this week, a move the government says will boost trade and business links. Under the agreement, UK citizens visiting China for up to 30 days will no longer need a visa, bringing Britain into line with countries like France and Germany. The Prime Minister says businesses have been crying out for easier access to China as he pushes for a more stable and long-term relationship. In talks with President Xi Jinping, Sir Keir Starmer said that the UK wants a more sophisticated partnership, while China said it is ready to develop a consistent strategic relationship. The Prime Minister is also expected to announce a border security deal aimed at stopping Chinese-made small boat parts reaching people smuggling gangs in Europe. Well, earlier, the Conservative Minister Matt Vickers questioned whether any of this will really make a real difference.
Gimmick that we're hearing today from China. Everybody at home knows the only way you solve this problem is for those people who get in those boats to know they will not be allowed to stay in this country. That's what has to happen. The National Crime Agency tell you we have to have a deterrent. We have to tell people that if you break into this country, you will not get to stay. No ifs, no buts. That's how we solve it. It's common sense. We know it worked because we saw it happen when we had the agreement with Albania.
Nearly 100 children were harmed by a surgeon at Great Ormond Street Hospital, according to a damning new internal review. The investigation found widespread, unacceptable practice by limb reconstruction specialist Yasser Jabber, who worked at the hospital between 2017 and 2022. Out of 789 children under his care, 94 were found to have come to harm, most of them following surgery for complex limb lengthening procedures. One family has said their 12-year-old son still suffers nightmares and will live with the consequences for the rest of his life. Jabbar is understood to be living overseas and no longer holds a licence to practice in the UK. The Metropolitan Police has said it is reviewing the findings to decide whether a criminal investigation is needed. Women hit by changes to the state pension age have reacted with anger and disbelief today after ministers again rejected calls for compensation. The government reviewed the case after new documents emerged, but has concluded no payouts will be made. Campaigners from Women Against State Pension Inequality say 3.6 million women born in the 1950s were not properly informed about the rise in pension age, which left many facing unexpected financial hardship. They've accused ministers of showing utter contempt for those affected. Cabinet Office Minister Pat McFadden, though, says a compensation scheme would not be practical, a position that has today reignited calls for the government to rethink. A 15-year-old boy has pleaded guilty to the murder of Leo Ross, a 12-year-old schoolboy stabbed to death in Birmingham. The teenager, who cannot be named for legal reasons, entered his plea today at Birmingham Crown Court. Leo was attacked on the 21st of January last year as he was walking home from school in Yardley Wood, but sadly died from stab wounds at the scene. And just a breaking line to bring you from Highbury Coroner Magistrates Court this hour. A paedophile nursery worker has pleaded guilty to 26 new sexual offences, including upskirting children inside a classroom. Vincent Chan, a former nursery worker in the north of London, admitted those charges today, appearing via video link from prison. The offences include taking indecent images of children, voyeurism, sexual assault and outraging public decency, with admissions that he filmed up the skirts of young girls as they sat in class. He is now admitted to 52 offences in total, including those today. He is due to be sentenced next month. Turning to news in the United States, and 2 federal immigration agents involved in the fatal shooting of Alex Pretty in Minneapolis have been placed on administrative leave. That, according to officials, is routine practice. Pretty, a 37-year-old intensive care nurse, was shot and killed during a federal immigration operation on Saturday, sparking widespread protests and bipartisan criticism of enforcement tactics. The Trump administration, though, has dispatched Border Chief Tom Homan to Minneapolis, saying ICE is working to make its operations safer by the book and acknowledging improvements are needed. Minnesota officials and campaigners, though, continue to call for accountability as tensions continue to simmer over federal immigration enforcement across the city. Those are the latest headlines. More from me in around half an hour's time. Now, though, it's back to Martin.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Thank you, Sam. Now, Britain and China have agreed to share intelligence in an attempt to stop Chinese engines and dinghies being used by people smugglers to transport migrants across the English Channel. But would it really help to stop the boats, or is it just Chinese crackers? Well, joining now is GB News' political editor Christopher Hope, who himself was going Chinese crackers earlier on. Chris, I'm used to political ping pong, but you're actually doing a bit of ping pong myself, and I've got to say, you were smashing.
Martin, it's great to see you again, of course, on GB News. Yeah, that's right. I've been playing with these junior champions from China. There's a major world table tennis championship coming to the UK at the Box and the Wembley Arena in London. That's next month. And I was playing with two of the junior champions there. And shortly you'll see my winning shot. But before I get there, let me talk to you quickly about Sir Keir Starmer. He's here in Beijing, of course. It's his last night here. We expect him to fly on to Shanghai tomorrow. He's met with business leaders tonight at the residence where I was playing ping pong with these young champions. There's a real feeling here, I think, amongst the people I spoke to, the business representatives. They were very impressed by Number 10, very impressed by Sir Keir Starmer. It's baby steps, it's tiny deals, it's easing visa requirements. You can come here visa-free for 30 days if you want to come here as a business person, for example, or they're going to lift the tariffs on whiskey, or they can make it easier to move around the country with visas. That's where they are. They are trying to get towards dealing with us in a more of a normal way rather than being a security risk. We hear so much on GB News and elsewhere about the security risk of China. That certainly exists, but equally there's a big economic story to be told. It's the world's second biggest economy. It's growing very, very well, and that's why I think the China, the UK are trying to get close. So they don't want to avoid and ignore them, as happened under the last Tory government. 8 years since the UK Prime Minister has been here. Now, earlier I went to the UK residence and had a game of table tennis with two of these champions, and I surprised them. Have a look, Martin. Look at that. Oh, that's my slam. Here we go. Oh, hello. Hope you saw that live on GB News. Amazing slam there. Okay, I'm ready.
Chris, that guy let that ball go. He let that ball go to try and flatter your ego, Captain.
No, Martin, that was me. That was the old guy in the room showing the kids how it's done with a melting slam. And I was thinking really of Martin Daubney when I did that. That was really for Martin back in the UK.
Letting out all that anger by smashing that ball, pretending it was me. Chris, I get it. I really do. Chris, thank you very much there. All the best political spin all the way from Beijing. Thank you very much, Chris Hope. Now let's get back to the serious meat of the matter today. This Chinese small boat deal. Will it make any difference? Well, no. Because we've got an exclusive for you now from our man Mark White, because before the ink is even dry on Keir Starmer's border security deal with the Chinese, GB News can now exclusively reveal that the deal is likely to have little, if any, impact on the supply of small boat engines to people smugglers. We've been told the organised crime groups have already increasingly become distrustful of Chinese-supplied engines, which are prone to simply conking out, and they're now sourcing most of their engines from outside of China. Well, our Homeland Security editor, Mark White, has this scoop. Mark, welcome to the show. We were very, very suspicious that this deal would make any difference, indeed, as all of the deals before seem to have made no impact whatsoever. Mark White, I think you seem to have sunk this deal already. Tell us all about it.
Well, you know, to stick with your earlier metaphors on Chinese food, this certainly doesn't seem like a sweet deal. It's rapidly turning sour because what we've been told is that people smugglers, off their own accord, have been increasingly moving away from reliance on these Chinese backstreet factories to supply and assemble their engines just because of these reliability issues. Now, back in in the early days in 2018, 2019, they were high-end engines that they bought and paid for themselves, and therefore they were reliable, as were the boats. But as they wanted to maximise their profits, as this became much more of a crisis and a big phenomenon, they then looked to suppliers in the likes of China to get those engines sourced much more cheaply. But what do they do? What do we know about China? They copy. So these were never actually bona fide engines from the manufacturer. They were copies, cheap copies, that were prone to breaking down any time they faced adverse conditions, which you do out in the middle of the English Channel. So we had a system one day last year, 5 separate boats all broke down because of engine problems with their Chinese manufactured engines. Now, when you consider it's £250,000 for each of these small boats, that's £1.25 million that people smugglers lost. So you can see why they're switching to new engines. And just to prove it, we sent our producer Chris down to the depot, the compound near Dover, where the small boats and engines are housed, and we can see, and he told us, because he's expert with all these engines, that what he was looking at there, the bulk of the engines now that are being stored there are quite high-end engines and not the cheap Chinese copies. So you can see, Martin, that regardless of whatever the deal is or isn't between the UK and China on this, the people smugglers themselves are deciding that China's not worth it because the engines are just not reliable.
You know, Mark White, the pictures we're seeing on our screen, I've been to that place there. It's like a dinghy graveyard, isn't it? Everything is impounded when it lands on the docks there at Dover or anywhere else, in case it's claimed as stolen property, missing property, like a people smuggler's going to suddenly rock up and go, "Oh, can I have my dinghy back, please?" It's a farce. But what we're seeing there, Mark White, are hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of seized motors. And as you're saying, upon closer inspection, it doesn't quite fit this script, this spin we're getting from Number 10 today. They claim 60% of the motors are made in China. Your images here clearly prove that not to be the case. They're abandoning this Chinese tat because there's one thing they need to get people over the channel to keep their business model alive. So it would appear, Mark White, that Sir Keir Starmer is simply chasing shadows. He's closing down a route to Britain that the people smugglers aren't even using anymore.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about these small boat engines being gathered and put in that compound is the authorities, Border Force and the Home Office, will be well aware of the changing pattern in the engine supplies, you know, and they will have been aware that increasingly of late it's been moving away from China and been using other suppliers. Now, historically, I'm sure it's very true that 60% of the engine parts components came from China. But I think now, if you're looking at it in recent months, that would not be the case. It's, I think, clear and evident from what we're seeing there. And where are they getting the new engines from? Well, you know, there's any number of countries and suppliers they could go to. In fact, you found today, Martin, on the internet, just on eBay, thousands upon thousands of small boat outboard motors, all there, either second-hand, some new, all for sale to anyone, no questions asked, obviously.
You know, Mark White, that footage there, just scrolling through quickly, just to give you an idea of some of the engines are available to buy to anybody in Britain or anybody in Europe. There are 38,000 motors for sale today on eBay, and they start at about 65 quid. They go up to about 250 quid. It's peanuts, Mark White. And I've done some fag packet maths. If we take into account that 65,000 illegals across the channel since the Labour Party came into power, let's just say a rough rule of thumb, it's 50 per dinghy. That's about 1,300 boats, Mark White. Well, by my estimates, there are enough motors on sale today on eBay to get people to our country for 21.5 years. Mark White, if I can buy a dinghy, if I can buy a motor on eBay, so can a people smuggler. This deal today from Keir Starmer, as well-meaning as the Labour Party might think it is, I put it to you, it isn't worth the paper it's written on.
Well, especially when you consider that's exactly what they used to do, is they used to buy their engines legitimately. It was only the drive to kind of maximise the profits that took them to the backstreet factories of China and just these copy engine products which are not at all reliable. Well, they have learned the hard way, because at the end of the day it's a criminal enterprise, but it's still a business, and it's all about, you know, trying to get profit. And if you're losing £250,000 on each boat that breaks down, then you're clearly doing what they've decided to do, which is move away from unreliable suppliers and get more reliable suppliers. And that might mean just getting, you know, these other individuals out there. They're sort of people that are acting on their behalf, brokers if you like, to buy the engines for them and to source them that way. Or it could be to find a total new supply chain of people who are just not as dodgy as the Chinese.
And also, Mark White, a country the size of China, an economy the size of China, with corruption, let's be brutal, with corruption in a country the size of China, how on earth do they hope, even if smugglers did want to continue sole reliance on Chinese motors, which we've established they don't, how on earth could they hope to choke that supply down? It's a fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, they can't. What will happen is, often happens with, you know, the signing of such deals, is word will come down from on high. You'll get local officials will probably come up with a raid or two to overturn a few backstreet factories, and then that'll be it. You know, we'll hear nothing more about it.
OK, Mark White, another sensational exclusive from you. Once again, the best in the business. Thank you very, very much indeed, Mark White. Now, moving on, the Labour Council leaders were allegedly lent on to cancel local elections. The party's ruling body has heard. The government has maintained that elections were not cancelled for party political reasons, despite fears of a Labour wipeout by reform. But if Labour can cancel local elections, should they cancel certain candidates that seem unsuitable? Because in Birmingham, a convicted terrorist is presently standing for election. Shahid Burt was convicted in Yemen in 1999 for conspiring to bomb the British consulate and also to bomb a church and a hotel. Now, he claims to have been wrongly convicted, and now he works for community-based organisations to highlight the dangers of radicalisation. What a state of affairs we are. Let's talk about the first story now with my guest, the political commentator David Wooding. David, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. Let's talk about this revelation. It's from a senior, very respected NEC Labour veteran, a lady known as Anne Black, who seems to have blown the whistle, saying that in actual fact NEC members were leaning on councillors to try and encourage Labour councillors, to cancel elections. It appears to feed into this story that the Labour Party are indeed trying to cancel elections where they're expected to lose.
Absolutely. Anne Black is quite a respected figure. She's on the NEC as a local constituency representative. And on her blog, she says that I am here to tell you it as it is, as a Labour loyalist and a Labour member for many years, and a member of the NEC for many years indeed, as it is, without any spin and without any bias. And she says, quite bluntly, in her blog, latest blog from the January the 20th meeting, it was brought up that some council leaders were being lent on by the government. It didn't actually say by the government, but it said they were being lent on from above to postpone the elections. Now, we've had 29 council elections postponed. That's 4.5 million people who've lost the vote. This is the sort of behaviour you expect in tin pot dictatorships, not in a major democracy like Great Britain.
And David Wooding, it lends credence, does it not? Because in this one particular area, a councillor faced a no-confidence vote in Nuneaton. It was a Labour councillor who'd been trying to influence the broader council to call for a cancellation. They didn't want that, to be fair to them. This was Conservative, Greens and Lib Dems got him kicked out in Nuneaton. But it does beg the further question, if it's been proven to be happening in one council by an NEC whistleblower, it could be happening all over the shop. And perhaps that's a major problem for the Labour Party, because Reform are taking this to the High Court in February.
Yes, and with good reason too. The Electoral Commission have said that the decision is harming legitimate representation and the decision making, and it's damaging public confidence. Now, if a non-biased overriding body like the Electoral Commission is saying that, it's no wonder that Nigel Farage, the Reform UK leader, is saying they're behaving like a banana republic.
And David,
and this could backfire, Martin, on Keir Starmer, because he thinks perhaps it will get him off the hook in losing all these seats in May the 7th. But of course, some of the London councils are not eligible to be postponing elections, and that's creating, they're still going to get a hammering there. So it's not going to do him any harm. It's just going to make it look as though he's running scared.
And just to point out, David Wooding, I have Zia Ysef on the show at 5 p.m. And he's absolutely throwing the glove on the table here. He is saying that they will fight it all the way. They will see them in court. And they're actually very, very buoyant and the expectation of getting a result. This could be a huge court case where these elections are forced back into play. It's an incredible political story. David Wooding, thank you very much for joining us on the show. As ever, I sincerely appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Now, still to come on today's show, we continue our discussion on the convicted terrorist Shahid Butt as he plans to run as a councillor in Birmingham. Really? Should convicted terrorists, be allowed to stand for political office in Britain? It's astonishing. This is GBNews, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
It's 3:28. I've got an incredible story for you now, and it's this. A convicted terrorist is standing for election in Birmingham. Shahid Butt was convicted in Yemen in 1999 for conspiring to bomb the British consulate and also an Anglican church and a Swiss-owned hotel. Well, he claims to have been wrongly convicted, saying the charges were not terrorism-related, and he was forced into signing a confession. Well, here he is at the Aston Villa ground recently saying how Muslims aren't pacifists.
You need to be earning halal rizq, and you need to be in that gym, doing that MMA, doing that boxing, lifting those weights, strengthening yourselves up, so that if anyone comes into your face, remember, Muslims are not pacifists. If somebody comes into your face, you knock his teeth out. That's my message to him. If he has any teeth.
So he's got a terrorist conviction, and he's advising Muslims to knock people's teeth out. And now he works for a community-based organisation to highlight the dangers of groups' radicalisation. Seriously. Let's now speak with the counter-extremism expert, Emma Schubart. Emma, welcome to the show. When I first saw this story, it was so astonishing. I couldn't believe it was true. But it is true. This individual has a conviction for terrorism. He's clearly a man who encourages, how should we put it, direct action on the streets of Birmingham. And now he's standing to be a councillor in Birmingham. How is that possible?
Well, it's pretty incredible that under UK law for local elections in England, there is no disqualification for an individual who holds any kind of past terrorism-related conviction. So that's the first thing. The second thing that I want to point out is that he is standing for election in a ward that is actually, as of the last census, around 80% Muslim. So all he really will have to do is mobilize the Muslim vote. And if he does so, then he will probably be successful in this election.
Do you think it's time bearing all... I mean, I'm speechless that you just told me that there is no criminal bar, there is no legal bar for which you're not allowed to stand. So if you're a terrorist in the past, no problem. That's fine. Now, you spent your conviction. He claims that his conviction has elapsed, that it's a spent conviction. Right. But surely, help me out here. So
there's one relevant disqualification, but it doesn't apply to him. That is that if you've served a prison sentence for over 3 months, and that happened within the past 5 years, then you're barred from running in an election. But since his conviction was decades ago, it does not apply.
And so he can walk into Birmingham, he can stand in an area where he's almost certain to be elected. If you look at the demographics and the coalescence of the votes, we've seen it time and time and time again in this new sectarian politics. We've seen it all over industrial towns. We've certainly seen it in these wards in Birmingham. There's no legal barrier to him becoming an elected representative of the United Kingdom, is there?
No, not currently.
Surely that has to change.
I think you're probably right, and I think a lot of people would agree with you. I think it's something that we should get MPs pretty mobilized about, given that the elections are coming up. I don't think it's very difficult to convince people that someone who has a terrorism conviction probably wouldn't make a very good elected official.
And Emma Schubart, we live in an era where people from the political left seem intent on cancelling people for a tweet they made 3 or 4 years ago for something offensive or racist or misogynistic or transphobic or Islamophobic. That's enough. That's a very, very low bar to get people booted out of public office and tarred and feathered and never enter this kingdom again. And yet this, where's the outrage?
Right. Well, I think sometimes these individuals serve politically convenient purposes, which is why we don't see much outrage. However, we now know that these Muslim sectarians don't need Labour anymore. They don't really need the members of the left that they have needed in the past to have their voices heard. So all that is to say is that we'll probably see a Muslim sectarian sweep, certainly across Birmingham, but probably throughout the country.
You know, there are very, very few stories that absolutely take my breath away and leave my jaw on the desk, and I'm just incredulous that we're even having this conversation, but that's where we are today. We really are. We have to leave it there. I thank you for your time. I'm still trying to process this in real time. You can probably tell I'm just absolutely sort of shocked by the story. Thank you very much for joining us on the show today. That's the counter-extremism expert, Emma Schubart. I'll be trying to make sense of this story throughout the rest of the day as well with other experts. Now, Shahid Butt spoke with GB News this morning and he told us this. I've never hidden the past. However, he claims he was wrongly convicted in Yemen, saying these were false allegations. I was tortured into signing these confessions and I was never plotting or planning to do any acts of terrorism or violence. Now, he told us he is against violence towards Jews and if elected would represent every single person, whatever their religion. He's also said he has been a vocal voice against radicalisation and extremism since being released from prison. He said his conviction was outside of the British system and so claimed that the law doesn't bar me from standing as a councillor. There's lots more still to come between now and 4 p.m, including I'll be joined by a furious WASPI woman as ministers have again rejected their claims for compensation. But first, here's your headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon to you. Just after 3:30, the top story this hour. Sir Keir Starmer has secured a visa-free travel deal with China during talks in Beijing. It allows UK citizens to visit for up to 30 days without a visa. The Prime Minister says businesses have been crying out for easier access as he discussed a more sophisticated relationship with President Xi Jinping. It comes alongside plans for a border security deal targeting small boat supply chains. Here, nearly 100 children were harmed by a surgeon at Great Ormond Street Hospital, according to a damning internal review. Limbs specialist Yasir Jabbar treated 789 children, with 94 found to have suffered harm. Police are now assessing whether a criminal investigation is needed. Women hit by state pension age changes say they feel anger and disbelief after ministers again ruled out compensation. Campaigners from Women Against State Pension Inequality say 3.6 million women are left in financial hardship. A 15-year-old boy has pleaded guilty to murdering 12-year-old Leo Ross, who was stabbed to death while walking home from school in Birmingham. The teenager entered his plea today at Birmingham Crown Court. And in the United States, 2 federal immigration agents have been placed on leave after the fatal shooting of Alex Pretty in Minneapolis during an immigration operation. The Donald Trump administration has sent Border Chief Tom Homan to the city as protests continue and calls for accountability grow. Those are the headlines for now. I'll be back with a full roundup with the news at 4.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It is going to turn wet once again from the southwest. It's already happening. During the rest of the day, there'll be some heavy rain in places. Gusty winds accompanying the rain as well. And as that pushes into colder air further north and east, there will be some snow in places, mostly over higher parts of northern England and southern Scotland. But let's deal with the rain first of all. It's already arriving into parts of Northern Ireland, Wales and the southwest, and it will continue to track northeastwards through the evening overnight. It could cause some issues once again in the southwest, although not as wet as Storm Chandra earlier in the week. Any extra rainfall not at all welcome. By the time we get to dawn on Friday, it's pushing into that cold air across northern England and southern Scotland, and above about 100, 200 metres there'll be snow falling, although not really settling until you get to 300 or 400 metres. It will continue to pile up on the hills of the Grampians as well as the southern uplands as we start Friday morning. The Pennines seeing a decent covering of snow, like I say, above 300 or 400 metres. At lower levels it quickly turns back to rain, and we'll have plenty of rain moving through this first band of more persistent wet weather, edging northeastwards through the day, accompanied by strong southeasterly winds, and then a drier spell, but further showers following into Northern Ireland, Wales, the Midlands, the south and southwest. But by Friday afternoon, the next band of heavy and persistent rain moves across southwest England, again accompanied by some strong winds in places. Mild in the southwest, 10 Celsius, feeling cold in the north and east. And we'll see that snow continuing to pile up across the Grampians. But not just that, at lower levels there'll be significant rain building up. Throughout Thursday and into Friday, 80 millimetres in parts of eastern Scotland. The weekend's looking a little quieter. There'll still be lots of showers, lots of cloud around, gusty winds, but the persistent wet weather holds off for now.
Thank you, Britain, for helping us reach 10 million followers across our social media platforms. We're truly honoured to have your trust, one follower at a time.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. The A726 Queensway is restricted after a spillage on the carriageway. On the A55, both directions are closed between Junction 19 at Glan Conwy and Junction 16 at Puffin Roundabout, following an incident with long delays. On the A1M southbound in Durham, there is a road traffic collision between Junction 61 and Junction 60, with one lane closed. And on the trains, London North Western Railway and Avanti West Coast both report disruption between Crewe and Runcorn, with Avanti also affected to Warrington Bank Quay. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back. Your time is 3:39 now. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, you can send your views and post your comments by visiting gbnews.com/your say. And for a very special limited time only, friends of GB News could win one of 50,000 GB News bumper stickers. Just take a look.
Becoming a friend of GB News is free. It lets you have your say and be part of our shows every day on TV and radio. Plus, if you sign up by January 31st, you could win one of 50,000 limited edition GB News bumper stickers. To become a friend and for your chance to win, go to gbnews.com/bumper sticker now or scan the QR code on screen. 18 plus, UK only. Full T&Cs at gbnews.com/terms of use.
Now, my dad, Bob, has been nagging me for one of these. Dad, I've got you some here. Here you go. I've got you 10 of the things. I'm taking them down the Magna Carta at the weekend, Dad, for you and the boys. Get your stickers online now. There you go. I've managed to bag 10. Thank you for the team in Paddington for sending them over. Let's move swiftly onwards. Now, breaking news this afternoon. The Work and Pension Secretary, Pat McFadden, has announced that WASPI women will not now receive any compensation. But is this yet another Labour backtrack? Well, this is Rachel Reeves from 6 years ago. You can see there, she's standing with the WASPI women, proudly campaigning. But she's not the only one. Angela Rayner responded to the WASPI women's plight back in 2019, saying this.
You said we'll right that injustice, and within the 5 years of the Labour government, we will compensate them for the money that they've lost. This is their money that they've had stolen off them, and it's completely unacceptable.
There you go, that's the Labour Party signing cheques in opposition. They're not prepared to cash when they're in power. And here is the Work and Pension Secretary, Liz Kendall. She's pictured standing with, you guessed it, in solidarity with WASPI women. And even Sir Keir Starmer called the situation of the WASPI women a sad debacle and a disgrace back in 2009 when he too was campaigning in favour of a payout to the WASPI women. There he is with the chair of the organisation, Angela Madden. And just 4 years ago, he signed a pledge calling for the women affected to receive fair and fast compensation. Well, that hasn't happened. It's yet another Labour U-turn. And joining me now is the chair of the Women Against State Pension Inequality, Angela Madden. Angela, welcome to the show. There's always a tweet. It's always there. In opposition, this lot fully supported you. Today, you got a kick in the teeth.
Yes, it's exactly what it feels like, Martin, a kick in the teeth. It's disgraceful. It's a small group of very powerful people who decide that the harm and injustice that we've suffered simply doesn't matter.
The point about this is that there's this kind of posturing by politicians when they're trying to get elected. They get groups like WASPI women, farmers, pensioners, whoever it may be, and they make promises. And then in power, that promise is snatched away. Angela Madden, do you and other WASPI campaigners feel used by this?
We do. We feel used and abused by it. We are voters, and we are the generation that vote. And yes, we've been taken advantage of, definitely, because it seems as though this government have never had any intention of paying compensation. They've been saying the same thing as the Department of Work and Pensions, who already told the Ombudsman that they weren't going to take any notice of any Ombudsman's report or anything that proved them guilty. So it doesn't really matter what evidence we come up with. The government is intent on making sure we don't get compensated for the harm we've encountered. And I mean, the Ombudsman asked that the report be put to Parliament to vote on. And of course, the government aren't allowing that to happen either.
Angela, we all accept that the government, let's be honest, they're broke. The biscuit tin is empty. Borrowing is almost topping £3 trillion. Taxation is going through the roof to try and make up for that. But it's about choices. The government won't cut the benefits bill. The government seems to find money for public sector pay rises, for other pet projects, but they haven't found it for you. Does it send out the broader message, Angela Madden, that we have a government that doesn't seem to really care about pensioners, full stop?
We have a government that doesn't seem to care about people who they see not to have power. And of course, we don't have power, but we do have great influence. We have great influence with the general public. 66% of voters between 18 and 34 agree that we should have compensation. The unions agree that we should have compensation. Most of the backbenchers in Parliament agree we should have compensation. So we may not have power ourselves, but we do have influence with those that perhaps have more power than we do.
Angela, I think you're doing yourself a disservice there, because pensioners have great power because you're the most likely to vote, you're the most likely to turn out and let the country know how you feel. You know, you have an invested moment in society. You've paid your stamp all your life. The social contract, you were told, and I was told, we were all told, if you pay your way, if you pay your taxes, if you obey the law, you're taken care of and you're looked after later in life. That's the way a just and a fair society works, right? And that's been snatched away from you. And I put it your way, that there's a lot of pensioners with a lot of votes who could do serious damage to a government.
Yes, unless things change, we certainly will have that opportunity in a few years' time.
OK, well, Angela Madden, I'm very, very sorry to hear your news today. But one thing I know about you guys, you girls, you're not going to stop fighting anytime soon, are you?
Definitely not. We're back with the lawyers now, having a look at Pat McFadden's detailed statement that he placed in the House of Commons library, and we'll see what to do next. But we aren't frightened of the government. We're not going to shy away from any action that's on the table to us.
Angela Madden, you're the very, very best of British, and I wish you the very, very best of luck with your ongoing campaign. The chair of the Women Against State Pension Equality, Angela Madden. Thanks for joining us today on GB News. Amazing. Now, still to come, there could be more bad news coming for British farmers, as a shocking new report published today warns that the European Union alignment deal could wipe out millions of pounds worth of profits for British farmers. But first is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Sunny spells on Friday for Ibiza and Mallorca. A few showers in southern parts of Italy. For northern Spain and northern Portugal, more wet and windy weather swinging in here, also bringing some heavy downpours through into western parts of France. The south of France, Catalonia, seeing sunny spells on Friday, but it will turn wetter here. Showers in southern Italy and a mixture of sunny spells and showers for the Greek islands as well. That wet weather working its way across northern Spain into Barcelona for Sunday.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday Five.
You got me good there.
Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight on the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Aaron Trump being the knight in shining armour. This is in the Daily Mail today.
Yes, so Baron Trump in a, well, quite an outrageous story, to be honest, helping out in such a way. So Donald Trump's teenage son, Baron, saved the life of a female friend by calling the police in the UK after he saw that she was being attacked on FaceTime and made that call to the UK police. It's been reported that she'd been raped, and this has been heard in court. And this is kind of all the real information that we've got at the minute with this story. But yeah, what a quick decision to help out in that scenario.
Well, it wasn't actually as quick as he'd hoped, because it took 8 minutes. So he was having a FaceTime with his kind of online friend in the UK, and it took him 8 minutes to work out how to call 999, because, of course, he was in the States.
Yeah.
So then he called 999, frantically, was in a real state, feeling guilty he'd waited so long, and got told off by 999, saying, "Stop being so rude, sir." And the woman or the man on the other end of the phone asked him loads of questions, and he said, "Stop asking me questions. This girl is being beaten up as we speak." And she reprimanded him and told him off. And I felt very embarrassed, actually, on behalf of the UK, because he was doing a good thing. And, you know, he was being chastised by this kind of hoity-toity 999 advisor.
It's funny, like, you say that story on the 999 side. Like, I remember when I needed 999 at that time, I got told to literally, it was to do with an ambulance, so I got told to literally order an Uber because they couldn't get an ambulance at that time. And there's so many different things. Actually, yeah, you kind of feel like you're calling to try and help in this scenario, and sometimes it gets thrown back at you in quite a heavy-handed way.
I can understand, to be fair to them, I can understand why you want someone on the other side to be calm, polite, collected. Sadly, that's not reality, is it, if there's an emergency going on?
GB News, the People's Channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Well, good day. Time is 10 to 4. With me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, there's yet more bad news for British farmers. Today, a shocking new report has revealed that aligning ourselves with the European Union could wipe out an astonishing £810 million from British farmers' profits. Let's now speak with the arable farmer, great friend of the show, Andrew Ward. Hello, Wardy. Good to see you, my friend. It's been a long time coming. Look, aligning with the EU obviously sounds great on paper if you're Sir Keir Starmer, if you're of the Remainer bent. But this report out today by Anderson's Centre for Crop Life UK, it's concluded quite clearly that comes at a price. Because if we align with European Union standards on things like pesticides, it means that you are losing a lot of wonga.
Yes, hello, Martin. Great to see you again. And you're quite right. I mean, it's alarming when you see the report that it's up to 810 billion we could be losing. And as you've just said, we are being targeted non-stop by this government. And, you know, we've done a lot together on the inheritance tax, on everything that Labour are trying to do. They've actually, as well, they've reduced the single farm payment so that we've got nothing, 78% reduction from that last time. They're bringing a fertiliser tax in this next year as well, which isn't going to help matters. But just on this EU thing, Martin, it's really quite alarming, because we've come out of Europe, as we all know, and that was meant to have brought benefits. But now Labour want to take us back into Europe with all the negatives, so we're going to have a double whammy. And this is going to hit us hard already. And one of the problems we've had, you just mentioned pesticides as well. And as a country, the UK is one of the best in the world at bringing new active ingredients onto the market. And that will stop, because at the minute, we've had 5 new active ingredients brought into that we can use that the EU can't use.
Yeah, and that's the precise point, that there's been a divergence since 2020 from the European Union on things like pesticides because we're sovereign. We're allowed to develop our own stuff that's better, actually, than they use in the European Union. But now going back to the future, as it were, means you can't use the stuff that's great, that you made in Britain. You've got to use the stuff that's applied in the European Union. If you want to export your products to the European Union, it has to use the stuff that they've told us that we've got to use, which means you've got to invest a load more money. So all of this means that there could be a 16% decrease in profits of people who farm wheat, such as yourself.
Yeah, and when you look at it, Martin, 16% profit, 16% of zero is still, it's minus 16%. We're not making any money now as it is with all the regulations and the costs we've got. Because don't forget, wheat at the minute, I'm just priced up this morning to sell 20 lorry loads, so 20 times 29-tonne lorry loads. And I've been quoted about £40 a tonne less than I got in 2012. And yet, where's food costs gone since 2012? And when you look at the whole EU system that we're actually with at the minute, the EU have currently taken away from farmers' use 80 active ingredients that we are currently using. Now, we all have chemical stores with these chemicals in stock for us to use in the coming season. We've got one particular chemical that's used after we plant winter wheat that if it goes, we'll put that chemical on the soil next year, but then this chemical will be removed from the market. We won't be allowed to use it, yet we're growing a crop with a chemical that's banned.
Andrew Ward,
it really is unbelievable.
Once again, you're on the receiving end here. The rough end of the pineapple. Good job you're not a pineapple farmer. Arable farmer there, Andrew Ward, thank you very much for joining us. Now, a government spokesperson has told GB News this: we're focused on securing a food and drinks deal that could deliver up to £5.1 billion a year for the UK economy, backing British jobs and helping put more money in people's pockets. Now, still to come, the former convicted terrorist, Shahid Butt, says his past would make him an ideal councillor in Sparkhill in Birmingham, despite the fact he's a convicted terrorist. What do you think of this astonishing story? This is GB News, Britain's news channel. First, so here's your weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. There'll be some heavy rain in places, gusty winds accompanying the rain as well. And as that pushes into colder air further north and east, there will be some snow in places, mostly over higher parts of northern England and southern Scotland. But let's deal with the rain first of all. It's already arriving into parts of Northern Ireland, Wales and the southwest, and it will continue to track northeastwards through the evening overnight. It could cause some issues once again in the southwest, although not as wet as Storm Chandra earlier in the week. Any extra rainfall not at all welcome. By the time we get to dawn on Friday, it's pushing into that cold air across northern England and southern Scotland, and above about 100-200 metres there'll be snow falling, although not really settling until you get to 300 or 400 metres. It will continue to pile up on the hills of the Grampians as well as the southern uplands as we start Friday morning. The Pennines seeing a decent covering of snow, like I say, above 300 or 400 metres. At lower levels it quickly turns back to rain, and we'll have plenty of rain moving through this first band of more persistent wet weather, edging northeastwards through the day, accompanied by strong southeasterly winds, and then a drier spell, but further showers following into Northern Ireland, Wales, the Midlands, the south and southwest. But by Friday afternoon, the next band of heavy and persistent rain moves across southwest England, again accompanied by some strong winds in places. Mild in the southwest, 10 Celsius, feeling cold in the north and east. And we'll see that snow continuing to pile up across the Grampians. But not just that, at lower levels there'll be significant rain building up. Throughout Thursday and into Friday, 80 millimetres in parts of eastern Scotland. The weekend's looking a little quieter. There'll still be lots of showers, lots of cloud around, gusty winds, but the persistent wet weather holds off for now.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you to our global community for watching and listening to GB News. We're not only the #1 news channel in Britain, we're chosen by you, around the world.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The A726 Queensway is restricted after a spillage on the carriageway. In Wales, the A55 is closed in both directions between Junction 19 at Glanconwy and Junction 16 at Puffin Roundabout, following an incident with long delays. On the M5 northbound between Junction 2 and the M6, congestion is causing delays of around 40 minutes. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast has disruption between Crewe and Runcorn and Warrington Bank Quay, while cross-country is disrupted between Bournemouth and Southampton Central. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
It's the final week to see how you could become our biggest cash prize winner to date, as there's a simply stunning £85,000 in tax-free cash to be won. Go on that dream holiday, buy that brand new car, or just relax in the knowledge that the rest of the year could be on us. But you have to hurry, as lines close on Friday the 30th of January. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline.
Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's 4 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News, broadcasting for you once again live across the UK. All the very latest news, debate and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. We've got a top draw programme coming your way, and here's what's on your menu. Keir Starmer has pledged a tough new deal with China to help to block the export of Chinese-made dinghies and motors. He claims that will help to stop the boats. But today, GB News can exclusively reveal that people smugglers are already one step ahead of the Prime Minister. Plus, with over 28,000 outboard motors for sale right now on eBay, that's one day alone, I'll spell out exactly why Labour's Chinese boat steal is Chinese crackers. And a leak from a top Labour NEC member appears to prove that Keir Starmer did cancel elections in areas where they thought they'd lose to Reform UK and others. On today's show, I'll be joined in the studio by Reform's Zia Ysef, who says we're taking this all of the way. We'll see Labour in court.
To bring about a new kind of politics. It's not going to be the old stuff. I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in what's happened. I'm interested in solutions and going forward and working for the betterment of our community.
Simply astonishing story as a convicted Muslim terrorist is standing to get elected as a pro-Gaza independence councillor in Birmingham, claiming he can help to unite the city. Shahid Butt was jailed for 5 years in 1999 for conspiring to bomb the British consulate and a church in Yemen. Should terrorists seriously be allowed to stand as politicians? And do you remember this classic sailor ditty? What indeed should we do with a drunken sailor? Well, today, the Royal Navy killjoys have insisted that sailors stay dry. They're banning them from boozing for 2 days a week. I'll be joined by a sailor on the show today who moans, this is a rum deal. Sorry, I've got a frog in my throat. I think I need a little dash of rum. On a serious point, can you believe this incredible story we're talking about today? A convicted terrorist. That's right, a convicted terrorist is standing for election as a councillor in Birmingham. As a pro-Gaza independent candidate, we learned in the previous hour from a counter-extremism expert, it's an area where there are 80% Muslim voters. So on that metric, he's almost certain to get elected. Now, he claims that his conviction is spent because it was a number of years ago, back in 1999. But I put it to you today, are we seriously living in a country where a convicted terrorist should be allowed to stand for elections at a time where people seem to be thrown out of politics for something they tweeted about a few years ago? Let me know your thoughts. Go into gbnews.com/your say, or you can use the QR code on your screens right now. But here's your headlines with Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you, and good afternoon to you. Just after 4 o'clock, the top story, Zia Ysef has secured a visa-free travel deal with China during his visit to Beijing this week, a move the government says will boost trade and business links. Under the agreement, UK citizens visiting China for up to 30 days will no longer need a visa, bringing Britain into line with countries like France and Germany. The Prime Minister says businesses have been crying out for easier access to China as he pushes for a more stable and long-term relationship with Beijing. In talks today with President Xi Jinping, Zia Ysef said the UK wants a more sophisticated partnership, while China said it is ready to develop a consistent and strategic relationship. The Prime Minister is also expected to announce a border security deal aimed at stopping Chinese-made small boat parts reaching people smuggling gangs here in Europe. Well, earlier today, Conservative Minister Matt Vickers questioned whether any of the deal will really make a difference.
Gimmick that we're hearing today from China. Everybody at home knows the only way you solve this problem is for those people who get in those boats to know they will not be allowed to stay in this country. That's what has to happen. The National Crime Agency tell you we have to have a deterrent. We have to tell people that if you break into this country, you will not get to stay. No ifs, no buts. That's how we solve it. It's common sense. We know it worked because we saw it happen when we had the agreement with Albania.
Nearly 100 children were harmed by a surgeon at Great Ormond Street Hospital, according to a damning internal review. The investigation found widespread and unacceptable practice by limb reconstruction specialist Yasser Jabber, who worked at the hospital between 2017 and 2022. Out of 789 children under his care, 94 were found to have come to harm, most of them following surgery for complex limb-lengthening procedures. One family says their 12-year-old son still suffers nightmares and will live with the consequences for the rest of his life. Jabber is understood to be living overseas and no longer holds a licence to practice in the UK. The Met Police has now said it is reviewing the findings to decide whether a criminal investigation is needed. Women hit by changes to the state pension age have reacted with anger and disbelief after ministers again today rejected calls for compensation. The government reviewed the case after new documents emerged, but has concluded no payouts will be made. Campaigners from Women Against State Pension Inequality say 3.6 million women born in the 1950s were not properly informed about the rise in pension age, which left many facing unexpected financial hardship. They've accused ministers of showing utter contempt for those affected. Cabinet Office Minister Pat McFadden, though, says a compensation scheme would not be practical, a position that has reignited calls for the government to rethink. Also this hour, a 15-year-old boy has pleaded guilty to the murder of Leo Ross, a 12-year-old schoolboy stabbed to death in Birmingham. The teenager, who cannot be named for legal reasons, entered his plea today at Birmingham Crown Court. Leo was attacked on the 21st of January last year as he was walking home from school in Yardley Wood. In the United States, 2 federal immigration agents involved in the fatal shooting of Alex Pretty in Minneapolis have been placed on administrative leave, a standard step, officials say, after deadly force incidents. Pretty, a 37-year-old intensive care nurse, was shot and killed during a federal immigration operation on Sunday, sparking widespread protests and bipartisan criticism of enforcement tactics. The Trump administration has now dispatched its border chief, Tom Homan, to Minneapolis, saying ICE is working to make its operations safer by the book. Minnesota officials and campaigners, though, continue to call for accountability as tensions simmer over federal immigration enforcement in the city. And just to bring you an update on the situation, the growing situation in the region of the Middle East, the US Navy reporting that they have now sent another warship to the region, bringing the number of destroyers in the region to 6 as tensions continue to escalate there. The growing naval build-up now includes the USS Abraham Lincoln carrier strike group. It comes, of course, after President Trump warned Iran to agree to a nuclear deal, or he says face even harsher military consequences. So a seemingly escalating situation in the Middle East. We will keep across the developments for you, bring you the very latest. For now, though, that's it from me, and it's back to Westminster and Martin Daubney.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Thank you, Sam. Now, brace yourselves for another sensation exclusive from our man Mark White, because before the ink is even dry on Keir Starmer's border security deal with the Chinese, GB News can today reveal that the deal is likely to have little, if any, impact whatsoever on the supply of small boat engines to people smugglers. We've been told that the organised crime groups have become increasingly distrustful of Chinese-supplied engines, which are prone to simply conking out in the Channel, and instead they're now sourcing most of their engines from outside of China. Well, our Homeland Security editor Mark White has this sensational scoop for us, and here is our man Mark White. Keir Starmer in China. The deal he is hoping to take away, pun intended, 60% of the small boats he claims use motors manufactured in China, and hey presto, he believes that Beijing can simply choke off the supply and that will help stop the boats. Mark White, on day one, you've proven already that this Chinese deal is Chinese crackers.
Well, I have to say, when I heard about the deal earlier today, I was a bit surprised, because all the indications that our sources have been telling us is that the people smugglers themselves were moving increasingly away from China, that they could not any longer rely on the engines that they were getting from these Chinese backstreet factories. And so we sent our producer Chris down to the compound where these boats and engines are stored near Dover, and the images he's got just confirmed what we had thought. Chris is pretty expert on the engine types, and he confirmed to us that the vast majority of engines that he was seeing in that compound now were the higher end engines, not the sort of cheaper copy engines that you're seeing from China. And it's because these engines, of course, were just copies, imitations, that's what the Chinese often do, that they were not robust in any way and were prone to breaking down. So that meant, in essence, that the people smugglers were losing huge amounts of money. One boat, if it breaks down, that's £250,000, around that figure, that's lost. One day in particular last year, 5 boats all broke down because of these cheaper Chinese engines giving up halfway across the channel, not even halfway across the channel. So that was $1.25 million on one day alone. And throughout the year, that has persisted as a problem with the Chinese engines in particular. They're the ones that just keep on breaking down. So we have seen a trend moving further and further away from acquiring them in China and instead looking for other suppliers.
Well, it's worth putting this picture on the screen again there. For those who are listening on radio, this is it's the dinghy graveyard, right? It's a compound outside of Dover. I've been there myself. It's an incredible site. It's the size of several football pitches. This is all of the tackle that's confiscated when it lands at Dover. You can see there, hundred upon hundreds upon hundreds of outboard motors and dinghy. Mark White, it really brings into sharp relief the sheer scale of this. And as you say, our man with the expert eye has said, well, this isn't a Chinese supply issue. It's from elsewhere. And Mark White, as you know earlier on, I did a bit of delving myself today on eBay. You can buy anything on eBay. Well, you can also buy outboard motors. Of course you can. Here's a mere sample of what I found this morning in one day alone, Mark White. 38,000 outboard motors are for sale today. Now, by my rough mathematics, 65,000 illegals have crossed since Labour came into power. Just say there's 50 per dinghy, Mark. That's 1,300 boats. Well, 38,000 outboard engines, Mark White, is 21 and a half years' worth of supply. If they stopped every motor from getting out of China today, it would have no impact.
Yeah, and I think there are increasing indications that the people smugglers are reverting back to the model they had when this small boats crisis first began back in 2018. If you were to have gone to the compound where they were storing boats and engines back then, you will have seen high-end engines and high-end boats. Okay, the boats were much smaller than the specially adapted ones they have now to carry as many people as possible. But they were proper dinghies, and the engines were, you know, proper, reasonably powerful outboard engines. But in their drive to maximise the profits, that's when they started looking, you know, further afield in China at these backstreet factories in the hope they could make them cheaper. And of course they did make them cheaper, but they were just not reliable. But having now realised that they are just, you know, a dud lot, so many of the engines that are coming over, the model has switched back, and it may be that they're looking at brokers who are, you know, now accessing and buying motors from the likes of eBay, and they'll also be, I'm sure, looking to other locations outside the likes of China where engines, component parts can be brought together and engines made for them, but engines that are a bit more reliable than the cheap tat that you get from China.
Well, Mark White, another superb exclusive. Bravo to you, and bravo to our cameraman Chris down there in Daubney. And as you said, this was meant to be sweet, and instead it's turned sour for the Prime Minister. Thank you very much indeed, Mark White. Now, moving on to another story today that's grabbing the headlines. Labour council leaders were allegedly lent on to cancel those local elections, and that's according to the party's ruling body. The government has maintained that elections were not cancelled for party political reasons, despite fears of a Labour wipeout by Reform UK and other smaller parties. Well, I'm joined in the studio by GBNews' chief political correspondent, Catherine Forster. Catherine, welcome to Westminster. We were told the line by the government, this was simply about reorganisation, to give councils more time to get these elections locally done in May efficiently. But this is a leak from the heart of the Labour Party itself, which appears to add some gravity to the thesis that actually the Labour Party are running scared of elections that they may lose. Tell us all about it.
Yes, it creates a very different impression to what the government has officially said. So a veteran member of Labour's ruling body, the National Executive Committee, has posted following a meeting on January the 20th. She's posted online, I passed on concerns from council leaders who were asked to choose whether to hold elections. This is the crucial bit. And then lent on behind the scenes. Lent on behind the scenes. Now, we know that 4.5 million people have had the local elections, which they should have had, postponed for a year by Steve Reid, the local government secretary. He's done this in 29 regions. A couple of million of those people had already had the local elections postponed a year last year, so now being postponed 2 years. And the government's argument is they're having this big restructuring of local government. They're merging into sort of one bigger authority where you've got duplication, and that this makes sense. They have repeatedly said it is entirely up to councils. If they feel they can manage to go ahead, that's good. If they feel that they can't because resources are scarce with councils, which they know they are, that's OK too. But the government has no official position. This suggests that in at least some instances, that might not be quite correct.
And Graham Stringer, the veteran Labour MP, has added his voice to this, and he said, I think the cancellations themselves are appalling, and it wouldn't surprise me if pressure had been put on serious members of the party in local government, and if so, it is to be regretted. So a rebel backbench voice here, Graham Stringer, great friend of the show, Graham, hope you're doing well, mate, is saying that he does now believe that people have been leaned on by the Labour Party themselves. This adds a huge amount of gravity to that thesis that Keir Starmer's running scared and he's cancelling elections because he knows he's going to lose.
Well, it does. It feeds into this denying democracy line that parties like Conservatives and Reform are taking, because the majority of the areas that have postponed their local elections are currently Labour held. The Conservatives have postponed a few. The Liberal Democrats, for some reason, have about 15 are going ahead, and they've only found the need to postpone one.
In Cheltenham.
Why might that be?
Because they want to go to the ballot box, because they want to win, because they feel they can win, because people are sick of the big parties. They want democracy. Seems the Labour Party don't.
Well, this is what James Cleverly, the shadow housing minister, is saying. And, of course, Richard Tice, Reform's deputy leader, saying that Anne Black is a senior, well-respected voice inside the Labour Party. Her revelation must be taken seriously, must be urgently investigated. The cat is out of the bag, and it's finally time for Labour to come clean.
Worth pointing out that James Cleverly's Conservative Party did cancel themselves 6 sets of elections. So if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. How about the Tory party get those elections back on track? But it's an incredible story. Catherine Forster, thank you very much for bringing us up to speed. Now, a government spokesperson has told GB News this. This is categorically untrue. We took a locally led approach and listened to councils who are best placed to judge postponements in their areas. We wrote to councils to seek clarity and did everything we could to ensure councils felt supported to make the right decision. Well, speaking of local election delays, 4 county councillors in Norfolk have confirmed that they are standing down in protest at the delay of the county hall's elections there. And this includes the independent Norfolk County Councillor Simon Ring, who says he's fighting against Labour's attack on democracy. And I'm delighted to be joined by Simon Ring now. Simon Ring, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. You've probably overheard Catherine Forster and myself there talking about this latest revelation. It appears that there was pressure from the Labour top brass at the NEC. Does this come as any surprise to you?
Not really, but it isn't just Labour. You got to remember Norfolk County Council is a Conservative-controlled council. And they singularly failed to request the elections go ahead. They did everything they could in their letter to the minister to point out reasons why he might want to make the decision to cancel elections. The leader, Councillor Kay Mason-Billig, did not say have the elections, even though she promised our council that she wanted the elections. She said, I am ready for the fight, she said. Well, she wasn't so ready for the fight to request that the elections go ahead. And everything, if you looked at her letter to the minister, which incidentally is not online and it should be a public document and no one can find it, but those that have managed to get hold of it will confirm that she's done everything she can to avoid saying yes or no.
So in your opinion, do you believe that the elections were cancelled for the reasons we're mentioning here? The controlling parties feel they're going to get a good hiding in May, and so they pulled the rug to prevent that. Is that what you think is going on?
Yeah, no doubt. Absolutely no doubt. There's obviously a rise of reform in East Anglia, and that's the fear. But that's the fear at every election. Every election you have, you might win your seat, you might not. And we can't go cancelling elections just because we might lose them. That's the thinner end of the wedge for the loss of democracy, and it's frankly ridiculous.
And you were so disillusioned by what's happened, you resigned.
Yeah, I've announced my resignation, or I announced my intention to resign before or by May, when the election should have gone ahead. We've got to be careful not to resign right now, because if Reform actually win their appeal against the cancellation, then my residents will have no councillor until May. because if there's no by-elections within the 6-month period up to an election. So, but I fully expect and plan to stand at that by-election that's held. And the interesting thing here is it's giving us, the councillors that are deciding to resign, the power to give the electorate their democracy back. And I call upon all 84 councillors in Norfolk County Council and around the country, if they truly believe in democracy, stand down and let the residents make their choice, because we can force that election if we want to, by us all resigning and by us all taking the same stance that myself and one or two other colleagues have now followed suit with.
You know, really just beg the question, you know, what are people so afraid of? What are the parties so afraid of? I mean, I've always believed, you know, democracy is like oxygen. You need it to survive, and you can't have too much of it. But what do I know? Later on in the show, we're going to be joined by Zia Ysef in the studio. Of course, Reform UK are trying to take, well, they are taking this to the High Court, a 2-day hearing, February the 19th and 20th. They really expect they could get a result there. Simon Ring, thank you very much for joining us today on the show. I sincerely appreciate your time. Thank you very much. That's the independent councillor from Norfolk, Simon Ring. Thanks, mate. Cheers. Now, still to come, we're crossing to Northern Ireland for breaking news as pubs say they're relieved over a business rates decision. Here's our man, Dougie Beattie.
Yes, a devolved government's U-turn over rates on hospitality. We'll have more right after the break.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that, because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
We can allow.
Stop.
We can allow.
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Time is 4:26. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, pubs are desperately relieved over a business rates U-turn in Northern Ireland. Now, the proposed re-evaluation of business rates has been stopped, and Stormont's Finance Minister John O'Dowd has just said. Well, let's get straight to Northern Ireland now and join our reporter there, our man Dougie Beattie. Dougie Beattie, you were in a pub yesterday and they were desperate for some kind of relief. Today, they seem to be thrown a lifeline. Tell us all about it.
Yesterday, if you remember, in that pub in Northern Ireland, this was a devolved rates. And of course, Scotland this morning announced that they are also starting a review. And Northern Ireland, the Minister, John O'Dowd, who on Monday said everybody in the house behind us here said everybody had to pay their fair share. Lunchtime, we're called to a press conference and told actually they're reviewing it again. Though that review will now not come into place, they will use the rates from 2022. But unfortunately, the pubs are saying he's only really promising this for 1 year. So they're going to try and attempt a review in 1 year. And when I asked John O'Dowd about this, did he have faith in his civil servants that don't run businesses? And let's not forget, since 2022, we've 18% inflation, we've seen national insurance rise, we've seen the minimum wage rise, and the pubs and businesses are saying it's unfair and they really want it looked at in another way. There's some re-looked at, and I spoke out of Hospitality Ulster, and here's what he had to say.
Well, look, that's why I say we're meeting the Minister today, and we want to go in a collaborative approach. We need to get a proper model that reflects the profitability in our sector. To be honest, we have no faith in LPS, so we'd like to see an independent body look at this.
So they want this done by a private body, a business body that examines their outgoings, their income, how much profit is left. I mean, the price on meals, the profit on meals has dropped 20% in the last year. So, and a pint, of course, is going up because the price of barley, wheat, etc. is also going up, and that is because of taxation and laws on net zero. So this government has woke up to the fact that people are angry that hospitality, that not only creates enjoyment for people, but also creates an awful lot of jobs here in Northern Ireland. They are getting that relief, but we will be watching very, very carefully over the next 12 months to see who is doing the new review and how that turns out.
Now, Dougie Beattie, I know that you do more than most. It's the cross you must bear to support your local pub. You were there yesterday doing your bit to prop up your business, and you were pointing out something I think is really, really vital to get across. Pubs aren't just somewhere you go to drink, particularly in places like Northern Ireland, you know, where there are more rural communities. They're a hub, they're a meeting point, they're a mental health support. Pubs are, I believe, they're the mortar that holds the bricks of us together.
Absolutely, and it's where the community comes together. I mean, in that pub I was in yesterday, there's a community church meets in it once a week. I mean, a church and a pub, but it's one of the only meeting places in that area, and they use the events hall behind it to worship. Sometimes we have pub quizzes, there is community nights in there. You know, there's so much goes on in there, and the whole community comes together in and around there. People might only call in for a swift pint and away again, but it's how the whole community communicates with one another and how they form political opinions and how they drive together. And if they're looking at political opinions at this minute in time and they're standing in a pub where prices are going up and up and up, it is an act of self-harm by the government to make sure that people are feeling that when they're just walking past to enjoy themselves. Many's a night I walk my dogs through that village, and on the way through it's one of those pubs that you can bring dogs in, and it's great. You sit there, have a pint and move on home. Who could ask for more?
Yeah, Dougie Beattie, I'm just taking the dog for a walk. We've all been there, mate. We've all been there, and guess what? The dog is on autopilot. Seems to drag you to the door of your local every time. Blame the dog, blame that swift side wind, Dougie Beattie. You're a man after my own heart, but look, it's great. It really is great to hear that the pubs in Northern Ireland are being thrown some kind of lifeline. Dougie Beattie, I know you do all you can to support those businesses all the way through thick and thin. Dougie Beattie, thank you very much for joining us today on the show. Pleasure to have your company. And loads more still to come between now and 5 p.m, including new research paints a stark picture for the Labour Party, with voters saying that Britain's high streets have declined more than any other part of local life. Is it too late to save the beleaguered British high streets? But first, it's time for your latest news headlines, and here's Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon to you. Just after 4:30, the top story this hour. Sir Keir Starmer has secured a visa-free travel deal with China during talks in Beijing, allowing UK citizens to visit for up to 30 days without a visa. The Prime Minister says businesses have been crying out for easier access as he discussed a more sophisticated relationship with the President. It comes alongside plans for a border security deal targeting small boat supply chains. Here, nearly 100 children were harmed by a surgeon at Great Ormond Street Hospital, according to a damning internal review. Limb specialist Yasser Jabber treated 789 children, with 94 of them found to have suffered harm. Police are now assessing whether a criminal investigation is needed. Women hit by state pension age changes say they feel anger and disbelief today after ministers again ruled out compensation. Campaigners from Women Against State Pension Inequality say 3.6 million women were left in a financial hardship. They're accusing the government of utter contempt. A 15-year-old boy has pleaded guilty to murdering 12-year-old Leo Ross, who was stabbed to death while walking home from school in Birmingham. The teenager entered his plea today at Birmingham Crown Court. And in the US, 2 federal immigration agents have been placed on leave after the fatal shooting of Alex Pretty in Minneapolis. The Trump administration has sent Border Chief Tom Homan to the city as protests continue and calls for accountability are growing. Those are the latest headlines for now. I'll be back with you for the news at 5.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It is going to turn wet once again from the southwest. It's already happening. During the rest of the day, there'll be some heavy rain in places. Gusty winds accompanying the rain as well. And as that pushes into colder air further north and east, there will be some snow in places, mostly over higher parts of northern England and southern Scotland. But let's deal with the rain first of all. It's already arriving into parts of Northern Ireland, Wales and the southwest, and it will continue to track northeastwards through the evening overnight. It could cause some issues once again in the southwest, although not as wet as Storm Chandra earlier in the week. Any extra rainfall not at all welcome. By the time we get to dawn on Friday, it's pushing into that cold air across northern England and southern Scotland, and above about 100-200 metres there'll be snow falling, although not really settling until you get to 300 or 400 metres. It will continue to pile up on the hills of the Grampians as well as the southern uplands as we start Friday morning. The Pennines seeing a decent covering of snow, like I say, above 300 or 400 metres. At lower levels it quickly turns back to rain, and we'll have plenty of rain moving through this first band of more persistent wet weather, edging northeastwards through the day, accompanied by strong southeasterly winds, and then a drier spell, but further showers following into Northern Ireland, Wales, the Midlands, the south and southwest. But by Friday afternoon, the next band of heavy and persistent rain moves across southwest England, again accompanied by some strong winds in places. Mild in the southwest, 10 Celsius, feeling cold in the north and east. And we'll see that snow continuing to pile up across the Grampians. But not just that, at lower levels there'll be significant rain building up. Throughout Thursday and into Friday, 80 millimetres in parts of eastern Scotland. The weekend's looking a little quieter. There'll still be lots of showers, lots of cloud around, gusty winds. But the persistent wet weather holds off for now.
Thank you, Britain, for helping us reach 10 million followers across social media. We are truly honoured to have your trust, one follower at a time.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. On the A82, temporary traffic lights are in place between Letterfinley and Altura for roadworks. On the A55, an incident between junction 19 and 17 has closed the westbound carriageway. On the A38 southbound, between the A513 and A5192, congestion is causing delays of about 20 minutes. The M49 southbound has lane closures between the M4 and the M5 for road management, And on the trains, cross-country is disrupted between Bournemouth and Southampton Central, while Great Western Railway warns poor weather may affect services across the network. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Well, good day. Time is 4:36. With me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the Labour Party risks being washed away in a tide of discontent, and that's according to a new report that will happen at the next general election unless it confronts the decline of Britain's high streets. Now, that's according to new research out today. A study by the University of Southampton found that voters believe shopping districts have deteriorated more than any other parts of their local communities over the past decade. They can see it falling apart around their eyes, and are not at all happy about it. Well, join me now to discuss this is a hair salon owner, and that's Colette Osborne. Colette, it's always a pleasure to have your company. Of course, you're the owner of Haven. You've got two salons, one in Gedling, where I was born, and one in Beeston, which I know very, very well. Now, you were so hacked off, as it were, with Labour Party MPs, you barred them from your premises. And Colette, you've spoken passionately to me before about how high streets are simply withering away. This new report today seems to confirm your fears. This needs to be stopped.
Absolutely, Martin, and thank you for having me on again. Yes, it does need to be stopped. You know, anybody who walks down local high streets will see the deterioration, the boarded up shops. They'll see the kind of, you know, the, shall we say, the saturation of certain types of trades on the high street. I will say, Martin, that, you know, if the government are actually going to do anything about this and to actually save the high street, I think they're going to have to deal with actually saving businesses first, because we're being driven from high streets. That much is clear. With regards to kind of public perception, this is where they live. This is where people go every day. This is where your older lady who's got nobody in her life goes for a shopping. This is where, you know, mums, families all go out. This is their environment. And when they see boarded up shops and they see their hairdressers being cut from the high street, you know, no wonder why confidence is so low. And yes, you said I came on previously talking about how hacked off I was about the business rate. This is the whole point. We're not backing business. The government talk about a high street strategy later in the year. Too little, too late. We need that now. We've been warning, our sector's been warning government now for many years about criminal gangs and illegal activity taking over our high streets and forcing legitimate business from high streets. So there's a lot of work to do, but unless governments start to engage with businesses, they're going to have a very, very hard job to do, and it's going to be very lonely for them.
You know, Colette, you know yourself, you're a Nottingham lass, so department stores as well, nothing's been safe. British Home Stores, Debenhams, they've long gone now. This report says the number of department stores has collapsed from more than 1,700 to just over 1,000 in 6 years, a 70% reduction in department stores. Clothing shops down 13%, even betting shops down 20%, because everyone is now on an app. But as you pointed out, there's been an explosion, 38% rise of vape shops. And God knows how many Turkish barbers are propping up all over the shop. And Colette, you said passionately before, we've seen relief for pubs. But there's been no relief for hairdressers. There's been no relief for the other high street businesses.
No, there hasn't, Martin, and this is absolutely disgusting. I mean, firstly, I'll just say, you know, that from the barbers' point of view, they're not Turkish, they're actually criminal gangs. And the government are very aware of this. They're very aware that criminal gangs are taking over our high streets. They're not actually, as you just said, you know, I really am very, very happy for our colleagues in hospitality. But if you force small businesses from the high street, you've already mentioned the big department stores have gone. We're seeing, I mean, as I said when I spoke to you previously, I saw Poundland close near us the other week. Yeah. The problem is you start to force small businesses from the high street, there's nobody left. All you're left with is criminal gangs, money laundering operations who take cash. You're not left with any businesses that will actually draw anybody to the high street. Again, public perception is if they see their high streets failing, they see everything failing. And I think this is going to cost the government a huge amount of votes, Martin. I really do, because people are feeling very frustrated. Equally, business confidence has never been so low. It's absolutely on the floor, you know, and they just don't seem to be joining up the dots, Martin, shall I say. You know, they just don't seem to actually equate business success with growth and with economies actually thriving. And local high streets are pivotal to that. Remove hairdressers. We bring over 1 million a day in cyclical footfall. You remove us from the high street. Well, actually, you're not removing us from the high street. You're forcing us off the high street into the hidden economy. And if you continue to do that and allow the criminal gangs to take over our sector and high streets, then, you know, let's be honest, it's going to be more crime, more police are going to be needed. There's not going to be any kind of growth in our high streets or in our local economies. It's just going to be a further decline.
And Colette Osborne, you know, like I said, I was born in Gedling. You know, I was born overlooking the slag heaps of the coal pit. But, you know, we had a lovely house. It was a lovely community. There was a pub, there was a high street. As you said, you go and get your hair cut, you pop in the butchers, you pop in the bakers, you pop in the grocers, you go to the paper shop, you get some toughies. You know, you had an active high street which fed... The businesses fed each other. They became magnets for customers. There was an industrial base. People had brass in their pockets, and that's the point, right? That pit's long
absolutely.
gone. You know, the industrial base is long gone. Nothing ever replaced it. And it seems that the businesses that are clinging on like limpets, like yourself, you're being forced to the wall. What they should do is give you a business rate cut so you could prosper, and then people would come back in again.
Absolutely. I mean, you bang on the money there, no pun intended, Martin. But, you know, zero business rates. Do you want a high street? Do you want town centres? Do you want local economies? Or do you just want everything offline and offshore accounts? Because that's where we're going with this. But no, they need to do a lot more and go a lot further. I don't see any light on the horizon. I don't see anything there. But when you just mentioned Gedling, Martin, we mentioned before, we're the only employer out of 18 salons within half a mile. And all of those other salons are not employers. You know, we're actually surrounded by, as you mentioned, you know, certain shops. I'm not sure where this is going, but one thing is clear. And that is that, you know, our high streets are in huge decline. I don't think the government have a plan on this. I think they're being very reactive as usual. No proactive measures here. Okay. Even pubs are saying the business rates aren't going to you know, touch the sides. So
Colette
they do need
Osborne,
to zero rate it.
Colette, I could talk to you all day. I really could, but I'm told we've got to move along because that man Donald Trump has popped up again. Colette Osborne, you're a legend. Let's get you back on the show again soon. Thank you very much, darling. Thank you. Now, the government has announced a £5 billion regeneration programme over the next decade, and the Treasury Minister, Don Tomlinson, has said, we do understand it's a tough time for business on the high streets. Consumers have changed their habits, increasingly working from home and shopping online. Let's get straight now to Donald Trump. He's holding a cabinet meeting in the States.
Today, I'd like you to have the airspace over Venezuela. Planes can go to Venezuela opened up. Okay? Yes. Thank you very much. And I want to thank all of the people in Venezuela for what you know, what they went through, and I want to thank the leadership for really they're doing a good job. And just as I promised, we've defeated the Biden inflation nightmare and achieved explosive new economic growth. The Atlanta Fed is predicting an astounding 5.4% GDP growth in the fourth quarter, and that's despite the fact that we had a Democrat shutdown. We would have had that number would have been 7%, which is a number nobody's ever heard of. And we've been given great national security because of tariffs, and we've also been given unprecedented income because of tariffs. Part of the income that we gave, $12 billion, we gave to the farmers of our country, so that yesterday I was up in Iowa, and they were very happy, Madam Secretary. Yes, sir. They were very, very happy. They were great. So the GDP growth in the fourth quarter was great, and it's going to be, I think we're going to have an amazing and incredible year. Hopefully we won't have a shutdown. We're working on that right now. I think we're getting close. The Democrats, I don't believe, want to see it either. So we'll work in a very bipartisan way. I believe not to have a shutdown. We don't want a shutdown. And just yesterday, the S&P 500 hit 7,000 for the first time ever. There's never been any time at which it's done like that. And the other stocks also, I think it was 52 times for the Dow, had hit a record high. But the 7,000 was not a number that was even thinkable if you go back a year ago. So S&P hit 7,000 for the first time ever. The stock market has set, it's actually 53 all-time record highs since the election, adding $9 trillion in value to savings, retirement accounts, and 401ks, I mean, everybody benefits, but we have record stock markets. Companies have never done well. And most importantly, if you think about it, after 4 years in which Biden got much less than $1 trillion of investment into our country, actually it was taken over 11 months, even though we're 12 months. In 11 months, we've taken in more than $18 trillion. So they did less than $1 trillion, Scott, in a period of 4 years, and we've done $18 trillion in less than 1 year. So there's never been anything like that. No other country has done those numbers, by the way, in history. 10 years ago, one country did $3 trillion. No other. We did $18 trillion. Is being invested now. Thousands of businesses, plants, equipment all over the country are being built right now. And they're going to be opening pretty soon. And when they open, you'll see numbers like nobody's ever seen before. The economy is doing amazingly well. I wish the press would report it, but people are finding out. They're seeing it. It's coming. It's becoming pretty evident. It's hard to hide. Biden inflation, which is really stagflation, cost the typical family $34,000. Think of that, $34,000. But after 1 year, growth in real incomes is outpacing inflation by more than $3,000 under Trump. So one cost $34,000 and one made $3,000. That's a big swing. Gasoline has plunged to, think of this, over $4 a gallon, depending on where you are. In California, it's $7, $8 a gallon. I was in Iowa, and they had $1.85, because I had it at $1.99 a gallon. And I was corrected by two farmers that said, I just bought gasoline for $1.85. So, Chris, you have to be doing something right, you and Doug, right? But I don't want to give you too much confidence. You got to keep it going. We're drilling, I think I can say we're drilling more than at any time ever in the history. We're taking out more energy out of our land, but specifically, if you look at oil and gas, we've never been anywhere even close. Is that a correct statement?
That is correct. All-time records.
Yeah, great. It's a great job. Well, it's supply and demand. So that's going down rapidly. And, you know, when energy goes down, everything else goes down. They tried to do their thing. It was a disaster. Then they ran back very late to the Trump policy, but they didn't do the Trump policy. They cut leases. They did everything that they could do, but they lost it. And they were very high, and we're now less than $2 in many areas, $2.30 a gallon average. Grocery prices, airfares, hotels, car payments, and rent prices are coming down very fast. And you don't hear the word affordability issued by the Democrats anymore. Now they're going into other things because they're getting beaten badly on affordability. Remember that when I was elected, I came into office, I inherited a total mess, starting with eggs, which were 4 times higher than they were just a year before. And Brooke got them down very quickly before Easter. They said they wanted me to buy plastic eggs for the egg hunt, at the very famous egg hunt at the White House. Sir, would you buy plastic eggs? I would buy a lot of, like 100,000 eggs. They said, we're not going to buy plastic eggs. And by the time we had the egg hunt, a few months later, we had the prices down pretty good. And now they're really low. Now they're at a very low level. So we really have, you don't hear the word affordability because we inherited very high prices, and we inherited the highest inflation in 48 years. I say the history of our country. I think it sounds almost the same. Actually, I think 48 years sounds actually worse for some reason. So I'll go with the 40, because the press corrected me. I said history, and they said, it's not history, it's 48 years. I said, I'll accept that. And we had the highest inflation in 48 years. We have now as you saw yesterday with the Fed, I'm not a fan of his. He said that inflation essentially is not a factor. It's really been pretty amazing. I just put out a statement about his statements. I won't repeat them here because they're too angry. And thanks to our tax cuts, millions of Americans will soon receive record-setting tax refunds. You're going to get a lot of tax refunds, with the average refund expected to be over $1,000 higher than it has been at any time. So we're going to be getting some pretty good refunds, a lot of people. If congressional Democrats had their way, Americans would right now be facing the largest tax hike ever. You know, their proposal was to raise taxes very substantially. And our proposal, which is in the great big beautiful New Deal, it's a New Deal in its own way. It's a Republican version of the New Deal. Right behind you is a nice picture of FDR. This is a much better deal than the FDR deal. But we have the great big beautiful bill, and it's given tremendous tax cuts and a lot of other things. People are now finding out how good it is, and it's just
that's President Donald Trump there in DC talking about the economy, tax cuts, expectation of a 5.4% boom in GDP, record stock market though. Got to say, it's taking a bit of a wobble today, I've just noticed. But if anything happens of note, we'll dip back into Donald Trump in a bit. But back to Blighty now, because it's a move that's caused shockwaves across the Royal Navy. As sailors are ordered to crack down on drinking on board, with crews made to go alcohol-free for at least 2 days a week and meet strict government health targets. What do we do with a drunken sailor? Well, let's ask the former Royal Navy officer, Stuart Fawcett. Stuart Fawcett, I've got to say, this feels like a clamp down on fun. Back in the 1700s, sailors were given a dose of rum as part of their rations. Are they now just killjoys?
Well, I don't necessarily remember the 1700s in my time in the Royal Navy, but not quite that old yet. Yeah, I mean, like, drinking has been part of the culture of the Royal Navy and the military. Really, it's a kind of work hard, play hard attitude. I mean, when you hear the term splice the main brace, maybe GB viewers know or they don't know, but that was when something really technical had to be done with the main sail on the warship, and to sort of get all the most skilled hands happy doing it, they were rewarded with rum. And splice the main brace still happens today in the Navy for celebratory events, Monarch's birthday, things like that. Done it myself, it's quite good fun. So, you know, that's how it is. We abolished the tot in the 70s, which was compulsory drinking of rum, as that sort of progress was made. But, I mean, thinking back to my time in the Navy, drinking as a culture varied. So when we were at sea, it was a little bit different for officers as it was for ratings. But that was slightly, the difference doesn't really matter too much, because there was a ration, sort of 2 tins a day, essentially, that you could have at sea. And we wouldn't be dancing the hornpipe while we were doing it. That would essentially mean that there was a ration already. No. However, it's not really about the drinking at sea.
I'm being told we have to go. I'm sorry, because Donald Trump went on solo. But thank you for your time, and have a little drink on me. Still to come, the former convicted terrorist Shahid Butts says his past would make him an ideal councillor. Should we really have convicted terrorists standing for elections in Great Britain? That's next. First, though, here's your weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It is going to turn wet once again from the southwest. It's already happening. During the rest of the day, there'll be some heavy rain in places. Gusty winds accompanying the rain as well. And as that pushes into colder air further north and east, there will be some snow in places, mostly over higher parts of northern England and southern Scotland. But let's deal with the rain first of all. It's already arriving into parts of Northern Ireland, Wales and the southwest, and it will continue to track northeastwards through the evening overnight. It could cause some issues once again in the southwest, although not as wet as Storm Chandra earlier in the week. Any extra rainfall not at all welcome. By the time we get to dawn on Friday, it's pushing into that cold air across northern England and southern Scotland, and above about 100-200 metres there'll be snow falling, although not really settling until you get to 300 or 400 metres. It will continue to pile up on the hills of the Grampians as well as the southern uplands as we start Friday morning. The Pennines seeing a decent covering of snow, like I say, above 300 or 400 metres. At lower levels it quickly turns back to rain, and we'll have plenty of rain moving through this first band of more persistent wet weather, edging northeastwards through the day, accompanied by strong southeasterly winds. And then a drier spell, but further showers following into Northern Ireland, Wales, the Midlands, the south and southwest. But by Friday afternoon, the next band of heavy and persistent rain moves across southwest England, again accompanied by some strong winds in places. Mild in the southwest, 10 Celsius, feeling cold in the north and east. And we'll see that snow continuing to pile up across the Grampians. But not just that, at lower levels there'll be significant rain building up. Throughout Thursday and into Friday, 80 millimetres in parts of eastern Scotland. The weekend's looking a little quieter. There'll still be lots of showers, lots of cloud around, gusty winds, but the persistent wet weather holds off for now.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for making GB News Radio such a huge success. Whether you're in the car, on the go, or listening at home, thank you for choosing us as your radio station.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. On the A725 westbound along the East Kilbride Expressway, there are restrictions after a traffic incident. On the A55, problems in both directions from junction 19 at Glan Conwy to junction 17 at Conwy Morpher, with road closures westbound. In Lancashire, the M6 southbound between junction 35 and junction 34 has lane closures after a crash. In Staffordshire, the A38 southbound between the A513 and A5192 is slow with queues. And on the trains with cross-country and Great Western Railway services disrupted, for more travel news go to gbnews.com.
It's the final week to see how you could become our biggest cash prize winner to date, as there's a simply stunning £85,000 in tax-free cash to be won. Go on that dream holiday, buy that brand new car, or just relax in the knowledge that the rest of the year could be on us. But you have to hurry, as lines close on Friday the 30th of January. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Jubes & Co. with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here to GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Very, very good afternoon to you, beautiful people. It's 5 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live across the UK, all the very latest news, debate and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. We've got a cracking show, and here's what's on today's menu. Keir Starmer has pledged a tough new deal with China to block the export of Chinese-made dinghies and motors. He claims that will help to stop the boats. But today, GB News can exclusively reveal that people smugglers are already one step ahead of the Labour government. Plus, with over 28,000 outboard motors for sale on eBay today alone, I'll spell out exactly why Labour's Chinese boats deal is Chinese crackers. And a leak from a top Labour NEC member appears to prove that Keir Starmer did, in fact, cancel elections in areas where they thought they'd lose to Reform UK and other parties. On today's show, I'll be joined in the studio by Reform UK's Zia Ysef, who says, we're taking this all the way. We'll see Labour in court.
I'm going to bring about a new kind of politics. It's not going to be the old stuff. I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in what's happened. I'm interested in solutions and going forward and working for the betterment of our community.
A simply astonishing story today. A convicted Muslim terrorist is standing to get elected as a pro-Gaza independent councillor in Birmingham. He claims he can help to unite the city. Shahid Butt was jailed for 5 years in 1999 for conspiring to bomb the British consulate and also to bomb a church in Yemen. Seriously, should terrorists be allowed to stand as politicians in Britain? It's very rare on this channel that stories simply leave me with my jaw on the desk, but that's what's happened today. A convicted terrorist who attempted to conspire to blow up a British consulate and a church in Yemen in 1999 is standing to be elected as a councillor in Birmingham today. How on earth can this be allowed to happen if foreign convictions aren't applied on British soil? We're in a situation where a terrorist could become elected in an area where the population, we've been told today on GB News, is 80% Muslim. He will simply be whisked into office. Should that be allowed to happen in an era where it seems you can be cancelled for an offensive tweet? If you made it recently, if you're from a different part of the political spectrum. In a short moment's time, I'll be joined in the studio by Zia Ysef, who's waging a legal war on the Labour Party for the cancellation of local elections. He says he's going to go all the way to the top to try and make sure these elections go ahead on the day we learn that pressure was applied by the NEC. We heard a leak today, pressure downwards on Labour councillors to try and get those elections kicked into the long grass in areas where Labour felt they could lose. Get in touch, gbnews.com/your say is the way to do so. Use that QR code on your screens now, but no more from me. Here's your headlines with Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you. Very good evening to you. The top story tonight at 5. Sir Keir Starmer has secured a visa-free travel deal with China during his visit to Beijing, a move the government says will boost trade and business links. Under the agreement, UK citizens visiting China for up to 30 days will no longer need a visa, bringing Britain into line with countries like France and Germany. The Prime Minister says businesses have been crying out for easier access to China as he pushes for a more stable and long-term relationship with Beijing. Well, in talks with President Xi Jinping, Sir Keir Starmer said the UK wants a more sophisticated partnership, while China said it was ready to develop a consistent strategic relationship. The Prime Minister is also expected to announce a border security deal aimed at stopping Chinese-made small boat parts reaching people smuggling gangs here in Europe. Well, the Conservative Minister, Matt Vickers, has questioned whether any of it will really make a difference.
Gimmick that we're hearing today from China, everybody at home knows the only way you solve this problem is for those people who get in those boats to know they will not be allowed to stay in this country. That's what has to happen. The National Crime Agency tell you we have to have a deterrent. We have to tell people that if you break into this country, you will not get to stay. No ifs, no buts. That's how we solve it. It's common sense. We know it worked because we saw it happen when we had the agreement with Albania.
Excuse me, in other news today, nearly 100 children were harmed by a surgeon at Great Ormond Street Hospital, according to a damning internal review. The investigation found widespread unacceptable practice by limb reconstruction specialist Yasser Jabber, who worked at the hospital between 2017 and 2022. Out of 789 children under his care, 94 were found to have come to harm, most of them following surgery for complex limb lengthening procedures. One family say that their 12-year-old son still suffers nightmares and will live with the consequences for the rest of his life. Jabber is understood to be living overseas and no longer holds a licence to practice in the UK. The Metropolitan Police says it is reviewing the findings to decide whether a criminal investigation is needed. Women hit by changes to the state pension age have reacted with anger and disbelief today after ministers again rejected calls for compensation. The government reviewed the case after new documents emerged but concluded no payouts will be made. Campaigners from Women Against State Pension Inequality say 3.6 million women born in the 1950s were not properly informed about the rise in pension age. leaving many facing unexpected financial hardship. They've accused ministers of showing utter contempt for those affected. But ministers have said a compensation scheme would not be practical, a position that has reignited calls for the government to rethink. Water bills are rising yet again. Households in England and Wales are set to pay £33 more on average from April. That's an increase of 5.4%, according to the industry regulator Ofwat. Some customers will feel it more sharply than others, though. Affinity water customers in the Midlands could face the biggest rise of up to 13%. And at the lower end, Thames Water customers will pay around £3 more each month. The increases come as companies invest in infrastructure, but critics warn households are being asked to foot the bill. And a 41-year-old man has been arrested after more than 600 artefacts were stolen from Bristol Museum's archive in a high-value raid last autumn. He was detained on suspicion of handling stolen goods following a major investigation by Avon and Somerset police. The items taken include military memorabilia, jewellery, natural history specimens and carved ivory, bronze and silver figures. Detectives say 4 other suspects remain outstanding and CCTV images have been released as the hunt continues. Those are the latest headlines. I'll be back in around 20 minutes' time. Now, though, it's back to Martin.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Thank you, Sam. Stand by for another sensational GB News exclusive, because before the ink was even dry on Sir Keir Starmer's border security deal with the Chinese, GB News today can reveal that the deal is likely to have little, if any, impact on the supply of small boat engines to people smugglers. We've been told the organised crime groups have become increasingly distrustful of Chinese-supplied engines because they conk out in the Channel. And now instead they're sourcing most of their engines from outside of China. And our Homeland Security editor Mark White has the scoop, and indeed he has the video proof. Mark White, welcome to the show once again. We were told by Sir Keir Starmer this was it. One of the silver bullets to finally stop the boats, to smash the gangs. We will clamp down on motors being exported from China. Let's all go home, lads. This situation has simply been solved. Your footage blows this, literally, pun intended, out of the water.
Yeah, I mean, we had really found it a little odd when this announcement was made about China this morning, because I'm not saying that motors don't come from China, motors and component parts, they do, but increasingly they are not, because of the fact that the people smugglers have really been very disenchanted with the service that they've got from these backstreet factories in China. So we sent our producer Chris down to the compound in Dover, where a lot of the engines that are, all of the engines that are seized along with the boats are stored, just to see whether the engines there are Chinese engines or other makes. And you can see in the images, and Chris confirmed this to us, he knows his engines, having sort of worked with them day in, day out. And he confirmed to us that the majority of the engines that he was seeing there are the higher end engines, which absolutely tally with the information that we've been getting from our sources, which is over the last year, people smugglers had really come up against multiple incidents where these engines failed on them and the boats were forced to turn back, or be, for the people on board to be rescued by the French. And every time that happens, that's £250,000 on average for each small boat. On one particular day last year, 5 boats with these Chinese engines in them all failed. That's £1.25 million. So you can see why the people smugglers would be thinking enough is enough and they want to go to other suppliers. And that's what they've increasingly been doing over recent months. And the majority now, we're told, of the boat engines that are coming across are not those cheap copies that are manufactured by the Chinese.
Well, for the benefit of people listening on the radio who can't see that footage, let's get that footage on again. It's incredible. I've been to this dinghy compound. It's about a couple of miles down the coast there at Dover. It looks like an elephant's graveyard of failed government policy. Look at it. Raft after raft, motor after motor, hundreds and hundreds of the things, and that's the legacy of what's landed on our shores and has simply been put into a compound. And clearly there you're proving evidence, first-hand evidence, they are not cheap Chinese invitations, the sort of things that Sir Keir Starmer is trying to block. They are something quite different. And also, there's this thing called eBay, isn't there, Mark White? I mean, if I want to buy something, I go to eBay. Well, people smugglers probably do too. So I had a quick look this morning. Look at that. 28,000 outboard motors presently for sale on eBay as we speak. Now, by my rough maths, 65,000 illegals across the channel since the Labour Party won the general election. Let's say there's 50 per boat. It's often more than that. But to be charitable, that's 1,300 boats. Mark White, that's 21 and a half years' supply of outboard motors you can buy on eBay today. Even if every motor produced in China was stopped today, there's still more than 2 decades worth simply to buy on eBay.
And that's only on eBay. You know, there are plenty outboard motors there that can be purchased on behalf of criminal gangs by these third-party brokers who can do that for them. And that was the model that they had originally adopted when they first started out. It was only, Martin, when they decided that they wanted to maximise their profits that they looked to the backstreet factories in China to produce outboard motors that would be a lot cheaper. Well, in doing that, the Chinese, well, what are they sort of infamous for? It is copying, not providing real bona fide outboard motors from a manufacturer, but actually getting the specifications and knocking them up themselves. But in doing that, they're a lot less reliable. So they're now reverting back to a process of getting more reliable motors simply because they know that, you know, weighed up against maximising profit or losing profit if the engines break down, then it's better just to go with engines that you can trust. And that's why it's all a little odd, this deal with China. Yes, it might have some effect, but I don't think it's going to have any real effect at all, Martin, because quite simply, once again, the people smugglers are way ahead of the UK authorities here, and we're already switching away from that particular supply chain model.
Well, as you said so adeptly earlier on, Sir Keir Starmer's Chinese takeaway was meant to be sweet. It's turned sour before the day is even out. Mark White, thank you very much for joining us on the show today. Now, let's move on to my guest in the studio. I'm delighted to be joined by Reform UK's Head of Policy, and that's Zia Ysef. And also, of course, I'm joined by GB News' Chief Political Correspondent, Catherine Forster. Mr. Ysef, I wonder if I could come to you first for your immediate reaction to this astonishing situation with this Chinese deal.
It's one of the most insane things I've ever heard. Only Keir Starmer could respond to the real-time invasion of the United Kingdom by people coming from France to the UK via the English Channel by going, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to China to solve this problem. It's utterly, utterly insane, and people should treat it, frankly, with the contempt it deserves. And look, we're talking about these motors for dinghies. They're motors for dinghies. It's not enriched uranium. Right? Like, to your point, on eBay, there's tens of thousands on there. These are very straightforward to get hold of. So I actually think we're paying all of this far too much credit. I mean, really great work by GB News to point out that, you know, that actually even the people smugglers don't want to use the knockoff Chinese goods. But isn't that an indictment of this country right now, Mark? We are being invaded in real time. And I use that word invasion advisedly, because we're in a situation where more people have turned up on our beaches, most of the military-aged men from countries that hate us, they've turned up on our beaches uninvited than stormed the beaches of D-Day, of Normandy on D-Day. And it is an absolute disgrace. What we need is to actually uphold our immigration law. We need to leave the ECHR, derogate from every international treaty that would otherwise frustrate deportations. Say, you know what, if you're in this country illegally, you will be detained and you will be deported. That's how you stop the boats from coming, not from going to China and parade and trumpeting some policy about reducing supply of dinghy motors.
OK, of course, some people would say that the word invasion is a touch close to the bone, but just to point that one out, let's get to another story now, if we could. Catherine Forster, an incredible situation about local elections being cancelled. What's happening here is that we've heard there's a blog. Ostensibly, there's been a leak, and it's from a Labour Party source, an NEC member, a senior and very respected member of the NEC, Labour's hierarchy, has said, indeed, it does appear to be true, that council members have been leaned on to cancel elections in areas where the Labour Party could get a drubbing in May.
Yes, that's what this veteran member of the National Executive Committee, Labour's ruling body, has posted online following a meeting on January the 20th. Now, remember, 4.6 million people have had their local elections postponed in 30 areas now, actually, because it's now been confirmed as well that the independent Lib Dem-controlled council, Pendle in Lancashire, is also going to be postponed, but most of the ones being postponed are Labour. There's about half a dozen Conservatives, and now we've got 2 Lib Dem. 2, the government's official line is this is entirely up to local councils. It's purely if they feel that they don't have the resources. We know council budgets are stretched. But this lady from the NEC has put online, I passed on concerns from council leaders who were asked to choose whether to hold elections and then lent on behind the scenes. And this will be the suspicion of what has been going on.
And it lends credibility, growing credibility, and certainly, gravity to the notion that if councils where there wasn't an outright control are having this kind of pressure applied to them, then surely those where there is outright control have had the same. And this isn't some fascists, some conspiracy theorists. This is the Labour NEC member who's pointing this out, Catherine Forster.
Yes, I mean, of course the Conservatives, of course Reform will say that democracy is being denied. Of course they will call this out. But I think this is interesting, isn't it, that this is coming from a Labour source. And these local elections, the reason for the postponement is ostensibly, at least, because the government are having a massive reorganisation, restructuring of local government, removing duplication. They seem to have been, I suppose, at the very least naive in the complexity of doing that.
Let's get some reaction from you, if I could, Zia Ysef.
Well, we're in this terrifying situation now where millions of people in this country are being denied a vote, being denied access to democracy, being denied their right to boot out their elected representatives at local level for the second year running. That is what is so unprecedented about this. That is why Reform, as we speak, are engaging in legal action against the government. We think we've got a real chance of victory. And I really want to emphasise this. There's no guarantees, right, because sadly we do have, I think, quite a politicised judicial system. But even the Electoral Commission, no friends of Reform historically, but to their credit came out and said they see absolutely no reason for these elections to be cancelled for a second year running. Again, for millions and millions of people. And the thing that makes it really unprecedented, by the way, and this is a fact, never before in the history of this country have elections been cancelled for 2 years in a row for so many people without primary legislation, meaning without MPs who are ultimately accountable to their electorate actually voting this stuff through. And now we have, and I think this is going to be helpful to Reform's judicial review legal case, you have a respected member of Labour's National Executive Committee saying that they were lent on. And everybody watching this programme knows that, when people come on to programmes like this and, they speak to the public professionally, they've always had this sense that there's stuff going on in back rooms to pull the wool over people's eyes. And we're seeing that now in real time. And so we've got a petition out, letthepeoplevote.com. And I want to reassure everyone watching this programme that Nigel Farage and Reform are doing everything in our power to defend democracy, which is really important given we don't have a written constitution. And so we should not be complacent as Keir Starmer and, frankly, his accomplices at Tory council level who are colluding to rob people of their right to vote.
I think it's also worthwhile, I'm sure you'd lend your voice to this, hats off to the Liberal Democrats. So they want elections to go ahead. There's one cancellation, but the Liberal Democrats want elections to go ahead too. I've got a couple of other statements just to add on this story. Graham Stringer, of course, the veteran Labour MP, he's spoken out. He said, I think the cancellations themselves are appalling and it wouldn't surprise me if pressure had been put on serious members of the party in local government. And if so, it is to be regretted. But a government spokesman has told GB News that is categorically untrue. We took a locally led approach and listened to councils who are best placed to judge postponements in their areas. And we wrote to councils to seek clarity and did everything we could to ensure councils felt supported to make the right decision. But if the Labour Party can cancel local elections, should they cancel certain candidates that seem to be unsuitable? Because an astonishing story today in Birmingham. A convicted terrorist is standing for local election. Shahid Butt was convicted in Yemen in 1999 for conspiring to bomb the British consulate in Yemen and also an Anglican church and also a Swiss-owned hotel. Now, he claims to have been wrongly convicted, saying the charges were not terrorism-related and he was forced into signing a confession. And now he works for community-based organisations to highlight the dangers of radicalisation. Zia Ysef, it's not often in my job that I see a story that leaves my jaw on the desk. This one today completely took me by surprise. And I learned also that there is no legal barrier to these kind of individuals standing in an area that's 80% Muslim is almost guaranteed to be elected. It's incredible.
Well, it's a terrifying story and a terrifying reflection of the state of British politics that a man who was convicted of Islamist terrorism is now standing to be a councillor and, frankly, odds on, is going to win. Look, when I first came into politics in early summer 2024, I wrote an op-ed in the Telegraph. It was my first sort of intervention, I guess, or foray into politics. And I said Britain was headed on its current trajectory for a very dark place, one of sectarian politics, potentially even sectarian violence, an economic malaise, decline and catastrophe. No one has done more to warn the British public and the political class than Nigel Farage of the fact that we are now already in, by the way, but Nigel's been talking about this for years and was derided and hounded for saying the truth, which is we are sadly in a situation now where we do have sectarian politics in this country, where people, they're just voting for people based on their religion or the colour of their skin. The only path forward that actually gives us the potential for a really good outcome for this country, which I think we can have, is one culture, not multiculturalism. In fact, this story is the ultimate indictment of that, David Cameron, Tory kind of multiculturalism. One culture, one set of laws, not Sharia law, it's just one set of laws under one flag. That is the only thing that is going to work. That's why we're making the case to the British people that you should get behind reform, because that is the politics that we're offering people.
Zia Ysef, thank you very much for your comments and your company today. Let's get another voice into this debate now. I'm joined by the Labour commentator and the former leader of Bassett Law District Council, Simon Greaves. Simon, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. May I get your interpretation, please, first on that previous story, the one about local elections? There's been a huge conversation. Has there been pressure? It would appear that there has been. And that's not me saying it. It's a senior member of your own NEC.
Well, it certainly sounds like there's a fair bit of tittle-tattle in the background at an NEC meeting. The local councils of all stripes have been considering whether to go ahead with those elections or not. Some have said no and have approached government over it, and some, it appears, are wanted to continue. That's a decision for them. Now, this isn't about cancelling democracy. Those councils have councillors doing their work for their communities in place. It's a legitimate question as to whether actually it's a good use of taxpayers' money for basically zombie councils, because bear in mind, a lot of these councils won't exist very shortly, and there'll be some huge super councils in place in the very near future.
Simon, call me Poirot, but when we look at the 29 areas that cancelled their elections, 21 just happen to be Labour. I mean, it's that in itself is telling. And then when we hear from your own NEC member, this is not some conspiracy theory, that elections are being leaned on, something's fishy going on here.
Well, I would say if you went back to the election year, it was a very good year for Labour. And that's why you had the results that came through at the ballot box there. But ultimately, what's really going to be happening in the very near future, those new councils will have a huge set of elections for councillors that will have even more power, even more responsibility. And I think that will be a fantastic time for people to have their vote.
OK, I need to move on to my other story. I want a quick comment for you, if I could, Simon Greaves. Do you find it incredible that a convicted terrorist is allowed to stand for as a councillor in Birmingham?
I have to say that's the first I've ever heard of it. It sounds very concerning indeed, and I do hope sincerely that there'll be a review into the matter, and if action's needed, then it is taken.
I think you're right. I mean, people get cancelled in politics for a tweet these days. Surely there is some threshold that's been breached here. But thanks for joining us today. I appreciate your time. That's the former leader of Bassett Law District Council, Simon Greaves. Thank you for your time, sir. Thank you indeed. Now, Shahid Butt told GB News this. We spoke with him early on. He said, "I've never hidden the past." And he says, "I was convicted of being a member of an armed gang and planning acts of violence, and that was the actual official charge that I was charged with." But he claims he was wrongly convicted in Yemen, adding, "These were false allegations. I was tortured into signing these confessions, and I was never plotting or planning to do any acts of terrorism or violence." He also told us he's against violence towards Jews and, if elected, would represent every single person, whatever their religion. Now, he said he has been a vocal voice against radicalisation and extremism since being released from prison. And he said his conviction was outside of the British system, and so claimed that the law doesn't bar me from standing as a councillor in Britain. Now, still to come, we'll cross to Warrick Crown Court for the latest in the shocking case of a 12-year-old girl who was alleged to have been raped by 2 men. That's next on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's News Channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it. Don't get this on the BBC. Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no, because you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back. It's 5:30. I'm Martin Daubney. Of course, this is GB News. Now, Warrick Crown Court has heard a 12-year-old girl was targeted by two men and raped in a secluded cul-de-sac after one of them tried to strangle her. Now, both men deny those charges. And our national reporter Jack Carson is there for us at Warrick Crown Court. Jack Carson, a very concerning case. Bring us up to speed.
Thank you, Martin. Well, just to say beforehand that this report may contain details which some viewers may find distressing, but today, after the jury was sworn in yesterday, the prosecution opened this case by telling the jury that it concerned two men who, in their words, targeted a 12-year-old girl in Nuneaton in the early hours of the 22nd of July 2025. They alleged that Mohammed Kabir targeted that girl by trying to get her to come with him, which they say is the attempted abduction of a child, as well as grabbing the complainant by the neck in a charge of intentional strangulation. They say Mulakil, who was an associate of Kabir at the time, remained in the area and later met with the girl and led her away to a secluded cul-de-sac. They allege this is where he raped her, sexually assaulted her and took indecent images of her. Now, Mulakil is charged with child abduction, 2 counts of rape, sexual assault and making indecent images of a child. And the prosecution wanted to make it clear, and in their words, important for the jury to know that Mulakil has already entered a guilty plea to 1 count of rape. But he did then say to the jury that they will not decide this case on emotion, but decided on the evidence put to him. He then walked them through a brief timeline of the events, and later on this morning and into this afternoon we heard the evidence and cross-examination from the 12-year-old girl who is the complainant in this case. The prosecution say that around 6 p.m. the 12-year-old girl met the two men on a bridge, came into contact with the two men on the bridge. This is where they say Mr. Kabir put his hand round her neck, and that is what they say is the attempted taking and intentional strangulation. In her evidence, the 12-year-old girl told the jury that when she first saw the two defendants, she was playing in the park, and that Mr. Kabir, who at that point she knew as Loki, was saying, "Come with me," and was making weird faces. She described those faces as sexual. When they later came into contact with each other on the bridge, she said that Mr. Kabir, and alleged that Mr. Kabir strangled me, saying he put his arm round me from behind and that it was hard to breathe. She told jurors, "I thought I was going to die because I couldn't breathe." The alleged rape comes from when allegedly Mulakil comes into contact with the 12-year-old girl later on in the evening, shortly after 8 p.m. They say there was a conversation, the prosecution say, between the two, where Mulakil asked the age of the 12-year-old girl, and it can be heard in audio. The 12-year-old girl tells him that she is 19, but the prosecution told jurors that it was such an obvious lie. It was clear that Mr. Mulakil did not believe him and was at the time engaging and communicating on the phone with Mr. Kabir, and that there was a clear sense of disbelief at the complainant's age. It was then that the prosecution say that the 12-year-old girl was led into a cul-de-sac and was then there where the incidents took place. In her evidence, the 12-year-old girl said that Mr. Mulakil was acting weird, saying he liked me. She told jurors he put his hands on me and I told him to stop. When asked what was he saying, she said nothing. He was laughing. I was telling him to stop, and we heard how there was a use of a translation app on the phone as they were trying to converse. She said how he believed he was too strong and that she was trying to get him off me. Of course, all of the charges are denied by both defendants, and the trial here at Warrick Crown Court continues.
Thank you, Jack Carson. What an incredibly harrowing case that is. Thank you. Okay. So now it's time for your traffic and your travel update, and please stick with us.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Traffic is heavy on the A38 southbound between the A513 and the A5192, with delays of around 30 minutes. In Northamptonshire, the A5 northbound between the A422 and the A43 is running about 40 minutes slow. On the A9 southbound near the Dunblane junction, a broken down vehicle is partially blocking the road. The A55 is closed westbound between Junction 19 and Junction 17. And on the trains, cross-country has disruption between Bournemouth and Southampton Central. And Great Western Railway warns poor weather affecting services across the network. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It is going to turn wet once again from the southwest. It's already happening. During the rest of the day there'll be some heavy rain in places. Gusty winds accompanying the rain as well. And as that pushes into colder air further north and east, there will be some snow in places, mostly over higher parts of northern England and southern Scotland. But let's deal with the rain first of all. It's already arriving into parts of Northern Ireland, Wales and the southwest, and it will continue to track northeastwards through the evening overnight. It could cause some issues once again in the southwest, although not as wet as Storm Chandra earlier in the week. Any extra rainfall not at all welcome. By the time we get to dawn on Friday, it's pushing into that cold air across northern England and southern Scotland, and above about 100-200 metres there'll be snow falling, although not really settling until you get to 300 or 400 metres. It will continue to pile up on the hills of the Grampians as well as the southern uplands as we start Friday morning. The Pennines seeing a decent covering of snow, like I say, above 300 or 400 metres. At lower levels it quickly turns back to rain, and we'll have plenty of rain moving through this first band of more persistent wet weather, edging northeastwards through the day, accompanied by strong southeasterly winds, and then a drier spell, but further showers following into Northern Ireland, Wales, the Midlands, the south and southwest. But by Friday afternoon, the next band of heavy and persistent rain moves across southwest England, again accompanied by some strong winds in places. Mild in the southwest, 10 Celsius, feeling cold in the north and east. And we'll see that snow continuing to pile up across the Grampians. But not just that, at lower levels there'll be significant rain building up. Throughout Thursday and into Friday, 80 millimetres in parts of eastern Scotland. The weekend's looking a little quieter. There'll still be lots of showers, lots of cloud around, gusty winds, but the persistent wet weather holds off for now.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as
and now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's 5:39. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, transgender women will continue to be allowed to use Hampstead Heath's Ladies Pond after a High Court challenge was dismissed. Now, the case followed claims by some women who swim at the North London pond that transgender bathers had spied on them and made them feel violated. Well, joining us now to discuss this is the Director of Campaigns at Sex Matters, and that's Fiona McInerney. Fiona, welcome to the show. It's always a pleasure to have your company. There's one thing I don't understand about this case, and it's this. There is a unisex pond, as I understand it, that could be used for people who are transgender. Why don't they just use that?
Well, you're right. There are three ponds. There's a men's pond, a ladies' pond, and a mixed pond, and they've been there for 100 years. And it's only in the last several years that the Corporation of London, the City Corporation, has changed its policy to say that a man who says he's a woman can go and use the ladies' pond. And the issue, I think, Martin, is it seems that some men who claim to be women really want to use the ladies' pond. The ladies' pond is the smallest of the three. Its facilities are somewhat less, but it's very private, and that's why women like it. You know, it's a place where they can be naked if they want to, they can relax, they can sunbathe. And so it really is a violation of their privacy and their peace of mind to go there knowing that there could be a man there. No one can challenge. It's not that these men look like women, behave like women. It can be any man who simply rocks up and says that's how he identifies. And to be clear, we asked for permission to challenge the policy, and that permission was denied. So, you know, some might say that's a technicality, and certainly we'll be looking at what more can be done to challenge the actual policy. Because when you look into it in detail, as you say, many women have been deterred from using the ponds by this.
Fiona, it seems like a distant memory now that last April the Supreme Court found quite clearly in favour of biology, found in favour of science, not ideology, found in favour of actual fact and not what people feel. Why is it still that places such as Hampstead Pond and indeed NHS trusts, the Houses of Parliament, the toilets there, why do they feel that the law doesn't need to apply?
Well, it's extraordinary, isn't it? Has there ever been a Supreme Court judgment that has been ignored and flouted like this? In fact, the Houses of Parliament have responded. We and others wrote to them, and they've changed their policy. So it's men's, women's, and a gender-neutral toilet. So that gives everyone privacy and dignity. But the others you mentioned, NHS trusts, it's a scandal. And it can only be because they've had years of being told that people who feel like the other sex are the ones who matter most and have to be put first. And of course, we all matter. We all have rights. You know, we all have the same rights, in fact. And no one has to pretend that a man is a woman just because he says so. So I think we're going to need, sadly, more legal challenges before these organisations will follow the law.
I always ask you to try and help me understand, you know, I'm a bloke and I just live by a code of protecting women and allowing them to have a safe space. You know, that's what I just think is the right thing to do. And if there is another way of doing things, there is a unisex pond, there are facilities laid on, why is that not seen as an amicable solution? Why is there this insistence that my stated beliefs trump yours?
Well, I think there are a number of answers to that. Some people would say that this is a voyeur's charter, that if anyone can declare, if any man can declare he's a woman, it's not the nice, decent, respectful men who are going to come into the ladies' pond. It's a different kind of man. There may be some men who genuinely think that what they feel makes them like a woman, but we can't see their thoughts or their feelings. All we can see is their bodies and their behaviour. Some women would say it is an intentional act of violation of women's boundaries and that those men enjoy it. I couldn't say. All I know is that, as you say, they have a choice. They could be respectful. They could allow us all our privacy, and they're making a conscious choice not to.
Now, I've had some of these swimmers, the bathers from the Hampstead Heath Ladies Pond on my show before. I know that they're fighters. This is the High Court challenge. It's been dismissed. Is there any legal redress left now, or is this a fait accompli?
Well, there are other ways that this can be challenged. So our case was dismissed on the basis that the corporation is currently doing a consultation, and at the end of that there will be a new policy, and that's the time when the clock starts again and you can challenge. So that's one possibility. And the other possibility, which the judge was very clear about, was that any individual who feels discriminated against by this policy can take a discrimination case to the county court, and she could do that any time. But of course, that puts the onus on individual users of the pond, individual women, to put themselves out there, put their name out there, spend the money, risk having to pay costs, and bring individual cases to try and claim their rights. And we just don't think that's fair.
It's an incredible state of affairs. It really is. But thanks for joining us on this disappointing day for you. But I know that the girls there will fight on. That's the Director of Campaigns at Sex Matters, Fiona McInerney. Thank you for your company. I sincerely appreciate it. It's now a consultation run by the City of London Corporation and was published today, found that nearly 90% of respondents backed trans-inclusive access to the ponds, and with pro-trans campaigners saying it's unacceptable taxpayers' money is wasted by relentless legal assaults from a powerful, well-funded minority who are determined to exclude trans people. So coming up next, fury as police numbers plummet under the Labour Party despite promises to put more bobbies on the beat. The bobbies are beating it. They're clearing off. Why is that? What's happening? That's next on GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
United legend Remy Moses and an imposter.
Famously played for United back in the early 80s, having had a really successful spell at West Bromwich Albion, retired at the age of 28, of course, played for England. Now, you were telling me this morning you'd noticed the story, Anne, didn't you, in the Mail, and I checked it out myself.
Yeah.
And when you mentioned Remy Moses, I thought, well, what's she talking about Remy Moses for? I thought, well, he died weeks ago.
Yeah, except that he didn't.
He didn't. So a bloke called Kenneth Sim was masquerading as Remy Moses in the island of Zante, and he had been assuming this alias for many, many years. Kenneth Sim has turned out to be, he died just a few weeks ago, but he turned out to be a retired mortgage advisor from Hemel Hempstead, I think.
Now, the entire island...
Marketing executive, sorry.
Yeah, the entire island, including his wife,
yeah,
believed he was Remy Moses.
It was on his third wife.
He almost believed it.
So he died and he believed then that Remy Moses
has died, yes. And when
they even gave him a really big, glamorous, no, I don't mean that, sort of celebrity almost funeral.
Wow.
And he wore the Man United
they
kit when he
believed
was
they were burying the legendary footballer Remy Moses.
Yes, and he was revered on the island as well. I mean, he did a lot of good work. He coached women's football teams and he was involved in lots of different clubs. He didn't take any money for it. He could be seen wearing the United all the clothing, all the training kit and everything.
But when they did the funeral, they couldn't understand why there was nobody there from Manchester United.
They contacted the club.
He's one of their legendary figures.
Yeah.
Why did nobody come? So they contacted the club.
And they said, well, he's very much alive and well. And his brother said the furthest he goes is into Manchester to play snooker.
Yeah. So this man had convinced everybody he was Remy Moses for many, many years. Like I say, even his wife thought she was burying.
Wow.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back. Time is 5:48 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, police numbers are falling. And that's despite the Labour Party's pledge to put yet more bobbies on the beat. Shocking new figures out today show there are now fewer bobbies than a year ago, driven largely by losses at the Metropolitan Police. Well, let's now speak with the former London police officer and the director of the Law and Order Foundation, Norman Brennan. Norman, it's been way too long, my friend. Thank you very much for joining us on the show today. The Labour Party promises more bobbies on the beat. Instead, bobbies are beating it. Why?
I totally agree. Martin, people are just not told the truth. I've been in police and law and order for decades, best part of 50 years, longer than anyone in law and order in Britain, certainly as the Home Secretary and MPs are concerned. It's so dire that I would describe British policing as being like the Titanic. The rearranging the deck chairs, but the Titanic and the boat is still sinking. You tilt the boat one way and the other way. We're talking about numbers. Yes, we're 1,500 down since Labour took over. But what people don't know, Martin, is this. Since the population growth from 2009, millions, we are 20,000 police officers short. That is how bad it is. Last year, there were 7,000 police officers that resigned. There are 1,000 more waiting to look for a new job. There are thousands more that are waiting to retire, praying for that. I've never seen the morale so bad. And let me just caveat all of this and bring everyone up to date, all the viewers of GB News and you. The government, before they came to power or were elected, promised 13,000 new officers. They were very careful not to use the word police, but I'm very astute for detail. These 13,000 new officers Our 5,000 PCSOs that are not warranted have limited powers, 5,000 special constables that work for free only 4 hours or so a week, and 3,000 officers to make up the 13 are already serving officers taken away from beleaguered departments. So I repeat again, it's the Titanic. Just all we're doing is rearranging the deck chairs, but it's still sinking, and it's sinking slowly. And if it goes, I don't know who's going to protect society when all our police officers have decided enough's enough.
Norman Brennan, you paint a bleak picture. How can we have a quick minute left, how can we try and improve this?
I'll tell you what we need to do. Let's re-employ 10,000 retired officers over the last 3 to 5 years. Let's employ 2,000 officers in groups of 250, firearms officers, dog handlers. Everyone is public order trained. Put them in strategic places around Britain and target anyone and everyone from re-engaging with the local communities and shopkeepers, and target those that are blighting society's lives, and re-recruit the 20,000 missed officers. We might then try and save the boat from sinking. I don't hold up much hope, I'm sorry to say, Martin.
Well, Norman Brennan, you know, we've spoken before. Have you thought about getting involved in politics? I think you probably should.
Well, I'm just about to, I'm selling my home, I'm buying a motorhome, I'm travelling Britain. I'm afraid I'm like you, sick and tired of law and order. I'm travelling to every area in Britain, and I'm going to meet families of police officers, and we're going to fit window locks and door chains to people's houses and give them the best crime prevention information.
Okay, Norman Brennan, thank you very, very much. We have to go. I've always pleased to speak to you. A Home Office spokesperson has told GB News this. These figures show almost 2,400 more neighbourhood officers across the country in the past 6 months, getting police out on the streets where the public want them. This government has increased police funding by nearly £2 billion. Well, it's nearly 6 p.m. and it's time for Jubes and Go tonight, adeptly handed by the magnificent Miriam Case.
Good evening, Martin. Well, we've gone from stop the boats to eliminate the engines. Keir Starmer has done a deal with the Chinese to try to stop boat engines getting into the European markets. But will it work? And do the Chinese want to help us with our migration problem anyway? School suspensions. Should kids be sent home, or should they be kept in the classroom even when they've been badly behaved so they can't go on their phones? And more disappointment for the WASPI women. That's all with me after your weather.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It is going to turn wet once again from the southwest. It's already happening. During the rest of the day, there'll be some heavy rain in places. Gusty winds accompanying the rain as well. And as that pushes into colder air further north and east, there will be some snow in places, mostly over higher parts of northern England and southern Scotland. But let's deal with the rain first of all. It's already arriving into parts of Northern Ireland, Wales and the southwest, and it will continue to track northeastwards through the evening overnight. It could cause some issues once again in the southwest, although not as wet as Storm Chandra earlier in the week. Any extra rainfall not at all welcome. By the time we get to dawn on Friday, it's pushing into that cold air across northern England and southern Scotland, and above about 100-200 metres there'll be snow falling, although not really settling until you get to 300 or 400 metres. It will continue to pile up on the hills of the Grampians as well as the southern uplands as we start Friday morning. The Pennines seeing a decent covering of snow, like I say, above 300 or 400 metres. At lower levels it quickly turns back to rain, and we'll have plenty of rain moving through this first band of more persistent wet weather, edging northeastwards through the day, accompanied by strong southeasterly winds. And then a drier spell, but further showers following into Northern Ireland, Wales, the Midlands, the south and southwest. But by Friday afternoon, the next band of heavy and persistent rain moves across southwest England, again accompanied by some strong winds in places. Mild in the southwest, 10 Celsius, feeling cold in the north and east. And we'll see that snow continuing to pile up across the Grampians. But not just that, at lower levels there'll be significant rain building up. Throughout Thursday and into Friday, 80 millimetres in parts of eastern Scotland. The weekend's looking a little quieter. There'll still be lots of showers, lots of cloud around, gusty winds, but the persistent wet weather holds off for now.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for helping us reach 10 million followers across social media. We are truly honoured to have your trust, one follower at a time.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. On the A55, an incident has shut the westbound carriageway between Junction 19 at Glan Conwy and Junction 17 at Conwy Morpher, with eastbound traffic still running. In Cumbria, the A66 westbound is queuing between the A685 and the A6, with delays of around 15 minutes. In Staffordshire, the A38 southbound is slow between the A513 and the A5192. And on the trains, cross-country is disrupted between Bournemouth and Southampton Central, while Great Western Railway warns poor weather may delay services. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
It's the final week to see how you can become our biggest cash prize winner to date, as there's a simply stunning £85,000 in tax-free cash to be won. Go on that dream holiday, buy that brand new car, or just relax in the knowledge that the rest of the year could be on us. But you have to hurry, as lines close on Friday the 30th of January. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
All too often, people will be sitting at home watching a press conference live, and they'll hear loads of questions being asked, and they'll be thinking, that's not my question, that's not my concern.
We don't care whose feathers we ruffle. We ask the questions that you want answering.
You're all standing on the street protesting and want to have an open discussion.
My name is Patrick Christie's. I do a show for GB News in the UK. Is it possible to talk to you quickly?
Journalism in this country has been a cosy world full of groupthink until now.
Well, this is the best view ever of Whitehall, looking out across all the tractor drivers of England who've come together to make their point.
Hello, so as you can see, I'm here in Westminster as the protest begins.
Yes, I'm very much in the thick of it.
Look, we're challenging narratives here at GB News, and that's what sets us apart.
Good evening, it's 6 o'clock. I'm Miriam Kate and you're watching GB News. Coming up in the next hour on Jubes & Co. Does China hold the key to stopping the boats? Well, on the second day of his official visit to the Asian superpower, Sir Keir Starmer has signed a landmark intelligence sharing deal with Beijing in an attempt to stop Chinese engines and dinghies being used to transport migrants across the English Channel. But will it work? And can Britain trust Xi Jinping? And ministers have said that schools should only suspend pupils in the most serious cases of poor behaviour and violence. Between 2023 and 2024, school suspensions increased by 21%. But the Education Secretary says that exclusion isn't the punishment it used to be, because children retreat to social media, gaming and the online world instead of serving their punishment. And millions of WASPI women will not receive any compensation. The government has again decided in its latest ruling on the case. 2 years ago, the Parliamentary and Health Service Ombudsman ruled that women born between 1950 and 1960 who had been affected by pension changes should be compensated. But the Work and Pensions Secretary, Pat McFadden, said that a payout would cost up to £10 billion and would simply not be right or fair. And sponsors of the terminally ill adults bill have threatened to force the legislation through Parliament, despite the fact that legalising assisted suicide was not in the Labour Party manifesto. The bill's opponents say they're disappointed that supporters are resorting to bullying tactics in an effort to pass the legislation.